Okay, so we're live. All right. So we're at the top, almost close to the top of the hour. So ETM Hotep, this is your brother Wujao. Welcome to Divine Words Wednesday. I'm gonna just be a host. I'm gonna pass it on to Sanet Imiket or Sabat Imiket in a few seconds. I want to give people a chance to chime in, tune in, chime in, hang out with us, learn something, share something. We learn from you, you learn from us, all of that good stuff. And this good space that we try to maintain and create and maintain here on our channel. This is the Seshu Medew Netcher YouTube channel. And obviously, if you are tuning in right now, you must already be subscribed. So appreciate that. If you're not, subscribe and make sure you hit the bell and change the notification to all notifications. All right. And so today is Wednesday. And what is the date? Today is May the 12th, Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. And yeah, so here we are. Today's title is, or discussion is going to be related to the Stela of Dedu and the Stela of Entef and Nesumontu. All right. And so, again, this is just Wujao, and I'll just pass the mic and everyone can introduce yourselves who are on the panel and make sure everyone can be heard. Yeah.
My name is Tamika, aka Mika.
ETM Hotep, welcome and peace. It's your brother June. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you leave with satisfaction. Hotep.
ETM Hotep, Rennie Kadim, aka Zay Montego.
Hotep, Rennie Imiket. My name is Imiket, and welcome.
All right, we have one other, son Chris. Chris is with us.
Sorry about that. I was away for a minute. Excuse me. My name is Chris, and welcome.
All right. That's that I was away response too. Yeah. I don't know what y'all were saying, but yeah, I'm Chris and welcome.
My bad.
Yep. Nothing fancy, just Chris here. Welcome. All right. So yeah, just kind of spend a couple of minutes chatting a bit, give people a chance to tune in. So yeah, so I was saying this a little bit earlier that what we're gonna start doing, we're doing these series of live sessions on a more consistent basis. So we have Wednesdays and we have Fridays, Divine Words Wednesdays, Freestyle Fridays, but we may go live on other days to address information, share information, and usually to take something and turn it into a teaching moment or something that we can use as an example to expound on or to teach about. All right. And one of the things that's been coming up lately is, and we spoke about this already, but I want to just emphasize it more. And I was saying that I noticed that there are people who will argue, but not argue in the sense of taking a position and mounting a position and then making a claim, which is an argument. It's not in a negative sense at all. Some people think the word argument is something, negative and things like that. But people are arguing different things prior to really doing the investigation and doing the research on it. And I've been seeing that. I mean, it happens a lot, but more so specifically, I was talking about it earlier, is you have people who will learn something for the first time and it's fresh. And you have to understand, when you learn something new, it's exciting. learning new knowledge is pretty exciting, and it will have an effect on you. And most people, when you learn something new, you want to share it with your friends or people around you. You want to talk to somebody. You're like, oh man, I didn't know that. Let me see if so and so knows this, and then you go and talk and you try to explain what you learned. Now that is called an enthusiast, someone who is seeking information, learn something, and it is enthused about it. So that's your behavior. You share out of enthusiasm. Then you have people who actually research and investigate and do review as well. You review the literature on a specific topic or issue, and you see what experts in the fields, in the various different disciplines, depending on what it is, you want to get their views on it, what they're saying, and then are they in sync? Are they all in agreement? Are there disagreements? And if so, what are they? And where is the debate presently? If scholars are on two different sides of an issue, where is it at the present time? And you have to really know all of that stuff before you can intellectually speak on a topic, or in a beneficial way. Otherwise, you run the risk of passing on misinformation or outdated information, or information that was already refuted or proven to be, as they say, untenable, where they abandon ideas, they old ideas that used to be put forward, but they may be abandoned. All right. So that's the better thing to do, instead of just sharing things. So I'm saying that to say that a lot of that goes on social media, where people will learn something and share it. And there's nothing wrong with learning something and sharing it. The problem can come into play when those same people take a solid position and then argue and debate. And that's never a good environment, because one, you're arguing handicap. It's like having, a hand tied behind your back, but you think that, you are not vulnerable and everything. And so someone can come along and see where you are and try to correct and share, but then that doesn't work out very well, because egos will flare and things like that, where it's not a teaching moment, where a person has their mind made up and it can't be helped. And then that will just create the argument will turn into fussing. And so that's what happens a lot. But anyway, I'm rambling on. And we're not really here for that on this topic. So again, ETM Hotep, want to welcome everyone watching live and watching this archive. So today we're going to discuss the Stela of Dedu and the Stela of Intef and Nesumontu. So I'm going to just pass the mic on to Emicat.
Okay, sorry about that. Hotep, hopefully you can see my the screen that I'm sharing properly.
No, I see the screen I see is the screen that shows the slides.
Okay, so hold on 1 second. Let's we can stop that for 1 second and then switch it around. Come out of that. Okay, so how about now?
Okay, yes.
Okay. All right. So just let me know once it starts showing on the other side of YouTube, then I can start.
Okay, I see it on YouTube. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to present my two very simple steles this week. And obviously they are, just like we say, we try to keep everything within the same genre. So these are going to be stuff that we've seen a lot with offering. And I chose two because they were a little bit simpler, but also because they also show some of the things that we've seen people talk about here and there on, on social media. But I'll first just go through the translation. And hold on, let me take this out. 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So on the first one, it's we before I do that, let me just summarize the 4 steps that everybody should already know. Right now, the 4 steps that we go through when reading, when translating, and the first one is to determine the direction, and we usually have it in rows or in columns. And then either reading from, and that would be the orientation, and then the direction would be reading from either right to left or left to right. And then the second step will be documenting the different glyphs that we have and seeing and seeing how they function. And then the third step will be passing them into groups of words. And then the fourth step will be looking for the words in the dictionary to come up with a sensible translation. Now on this first one, we have just 2 rows. So obviously they're in rows. So, and then the direction will be from right to left, and we can tell that by glyphs of animate objects like the bird that we have here. Birds are usually quicker to look at, and also people and things of that nature. And you can see that the bird here is facing right, so we're going to be reading into the glyphs. We'll be reading from right to left. We can also see on the on the vignette that it's as the figures are also facing the same direction as where the glyphs are facing. So now on the first line, so we have imak, and then ker, and then we have pata, and then soker, and then didi, mes, and then seni. So this translates to imak. We know it translates to venerated. And then care will be either saying being before or being in the presence of.
I'm sorry, somebody's mic open. I can't hear you very well.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was Kadeem. He muted it.
Okay, so yeah, so let me read the first row again. So it will be imak, care, peta, soker, didu, mes, and seni. So imak, we know usually we translate it to venerated, and then care will be either before or being in the presence of, and then usually that will give us a hint that it will be a name. So then here we have peta, and then we have soker, and then it finishes off with didu, and then mes, and which we know is born of or who bats from the word mes, and then and the preposition, and then that a name will come in, and the name is seni. So it will be venerated before peta soker, and then the name will be didu or dedu, depending on how you pronounce it, and then mes en, born of, and then it will be seni. So the person is didu, and the person's mother would be seni. And then on the second row, we have the same repetition. So we have imak, and then we have care again, and then we have Hut, Her, or what we know as Het Heru. And then we have here there's Sobek, and then Sat, and then Mes, N, the same way again, and then we expect a name. Here will be Seneferet. But when reading it, this one is an honorific transposition. So we will have, instead of Sobek, Sat, it will be Sat, Sobek. So it's venerated for Ima. And then it will be Ker. And then before or in the presence of Het Heru. And then the name will be Sat, Sobek. And then born of, and then Neferet. And Imak, here I think we should have, I see on the glyph there's a T, so there's a T missing here that I will include after finish. So just keep in mind that there should be T there. So that's actually very simple on this one. I don't think anybody has any questions on that. You could pretty much read it in one go, but if anybody has any question, you can, cut me off now.
That's good. That's and the fact that you caught the bread loaf, the T, imaket, at the beginning of
Yes.
the second row.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then I will, any other thing? Dua.
So okay, now you dealt with the text, but
Mhm.
as far as the figure standing there, so does the text give us any indication of who those figures are?
Yes. Yes. So clearly we see on the image, I was gonna go on it after, but we could definitely go on it now. I think that will make more sense. It will be, there are two people. And then we see that the first person that is mentioned is Dedu. So we can quickly assume that that's the man. And then here we have a female. That's why we have also the bread loaf here. So you can just deduce that that would be for the female in this figure. So from what we read, we can tell that this man is Dedu. And then this lady is Sat Sobek.
All right.
And we also know who their parents are. And then there's more on the figure. We can go over it later.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so I'll take it to the next one, and hopefully my cursor is showing. Yeah, so this is a different, another stele, and it also has two people, but in this case, we see two men. And, before making any assumptions just from the, from the art itself, we usually would, recommend that we go through the text so we can find out more of what we are being shown. So here we see from the very beginning that we are dealing with an offering formula. And we can also see that in this one, the text is written in columns. And just like the one before it, we're going to be reading from right to left, obviously. We can see, the glyphs of the birds, like the quill chick is facing right, so we read into them. And I'm not going to go over the individual glyphs in this part. We should already know some, like we have the monoliterals, like the mouth. We have biliterals like men and so forth. But just to go over, and here is the same transcriptions of what you see on this section. So what I'm going to do is just read what we have, and it will be Hotep, Dinasu, which you already know, and that has our honorific transposition, and also graphic transposition. So Hotep Dinasu, then we see Wasir, and then Neb, Jadu, and then you have Kenti, Amenti, and then Amentiu, and then Neb, Abju, and then we have Peret Heru, And then we have Ka Aped and Imak, which we already saw from the other side. And then you can expect a name. So it would be Intef. And then, excuse me, Intef. And then you have Mes, N, like we have on the other side. And then Seni, and that's the arrow. It's just that these are not chiseled. They are written with brush. So some of the glyphs will look a little bit off, but familiarity will help you to know what some glyphs are when they're not very, very clear. But this is the arrow. So it'll be Mes N, Seni. And then we have Ka, and then T Ket, and then Ka Aped, N, then Imaki or Imak, and then Ker. And then either this will be Netcher, hem Netcher, or it will be Netcher with a single stroke. And then you have R, but I'll put it as Netcher R, and then Neb, Pet. So the PT spelled out, and then you have the bilateral here. So Pet, and then Monchu, N, Monchu, Nesu, because this will be the name. And then Mes N, you see that coming right after the name, born off. And then here we have, it's an I and a Y, which would be E or I, and the pronunciation that we use. But I'll just go to the next slide, and just, that has the transliteration and then the translation of what I was going through. So it's Hotep Dinesu, which will be Hotep Dinesu Wasir Neb Dedu, which is a voice offering the king gives to Wasir or Osiris. And this will be Lord or Possessor of Dedu. And then on the second column, you have Kenti Imentiu Neb Abju, and that would be foremost of the Westerners, and the deity or god of Abydos. And then you have Peret Keru, Ka Aped, which would be a voice invocation of bread and beer. And then you have ox and fowl. And then N, Imak, which would be for the revered. And then the name Intef. And then Mes N, Seni, born of Seni. And then here we have Ka, which would be 1,000, and then Tehen Ket, Ka Aped, and Imak. So it would be 1,000 bread and beer, ox and fowl, for the revered. And then number 6, column 6 is Ker, Netcher R. So it'll be before or in the presence of the great god or the great deity. And I think some things are missing at the bottom, but I will just go ahead and do it here. So it would be number 7 and number 8. I don't know why it's not there, but it will be Monchu, and then Nesu, but this is honorific transposition. So it'll be Nesu Monchu, and then Mes N, born of E or I, A-Y-A. It will be a easier way to pronounce it. So that is it on the reading part. So if any question before I go forward? It's pretty simple, really. That's why we're kind of going to pass through it. But if anything was missing or unclear, let me know before I move on.
Make sure I'm unmuted. That's excellent. So let me just make sure the chat. And for anybody that's tuned in, because we, as soon as we went live, we just kind of dug in, went straight in. Didn't really give a chance for people to tune in. But welcome, ETM Hotel. Welcome to Divine Words Wednesdays. Appreciate anyone who's tuned in and who will be watching this in the archive. So just want to make sure I shout out everyone who's in the chat. We see Brother Donnie, Aaron, and Sinet Lisa. And Aaron, just real quick, I know this is not a part of what you presented, but Aaron asks for someone to translate Imhotep. What does that mean? Okay, this is when I definitely check my microphone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I could hear you. Sorry, I was just working on something real quick. I thought somebody would take it, but yeah, yeah, we can hear you. So to translate or to explain Imhotep?
To translate Imhotep.
So Et will be to come, and then M in, and then Hotep will be peace. So you're telling people to come in peace, and we just say welcome in peace.
All right. Okay, nice. So yeah, I was just wanted to do that. That's pretty much it. Okay, so all right, well, let me come. Okay, so okay, you're not sharing it anymore. You have it up. Okay. Okay, so on this
Yes,
the
sorry to no, I was I took it out just to add the parts that were missing on that part. So for just for those who are watching, so if they want to keep it in the record, so then they have it. So yeah, it was this last part of on this page. So that's the part that I was reading that was not showing on the on a slide. So I just leave it there for whoever's going to be watching later on, so they have it as well. But yeah, before you continue, so if there were, I was just going to say that the reason why I kind of chose this these two stelas today to kind of go over them was, just to kind of because the conversations that's been going on lately, and we've talked about this in different videos where we talk about the different pictures that we see, and how we should not just look at a picture and then just do our own like give our own interpretation without reading the text, and also without understanding how Egyptian art is always represented. And I just wanted to go over just some of the things that people forget when they're looking at the glyphs, and not really focusing so much on the text itself, because really if when we're talking about even statues where it's just a statue, you'll find most of the time there will be like some kind of text that accompany that. It might not be all the time, but for the most part that is the case. And we should never really divorce the text and the art in itself, because the art part is giving a broad picture. It works like a determinative, like it's giving you a broad picture of what the text is going to be talking about, like a full summary. But then there's also we don't look at it, because the way that this art is presented is different from the art that we are used to, because we are used to art that is done from a perspective of the observer. And this, but then the ancient Egyptian art, the way it was portrayed, it was done to where you're taking some elements that or characteristics that are like are known or important in an element, and then you're putting them together. You're making a whole composite that shows all those in different angles, but it's like putting information together in without it being so realistic, but you're putting the most important elements of an object, you're pushing that forward, and that is what is known as aspective. So like I say, in those you'll find, let me just show an example, like what we just went through here. You will see like the head is usually in profile, and then you will see that this is not realistic, where when your head is in profile, then one of the eye is like in frontal position, like in full frontal position. That there's no human being that looks like that when their head is in profile. But this is just to show you the correct that you want to see that this is a person, this is an eyes person. So showing you the features that is deemed important. And then you will see that the shoulders are also in full frontal, and then the breast will show, and you will see that that is in profile, and the legs will be also in profile. And then you will see things that we've talked about, where it's like most of the time the women will be represented using a pale tone, or like a pale yellow shade. And then the men usually will be like in a reddish color, reddish brown shades. And this is not to say that we're not supposed to look at it like they're telling us that this is how they look, because there's no human being that looks like this, first and foremost. You can't have your whole torso looking like this, and then belly button looking like that. It's impossible to be in this particular posture. And then in the same stele that we went through, you would see on the offering part, where they were showing the offerings. Like here we have a duck that is already plucked, and then you have a table that has bread, and then you have the meat, and you have an ox leg and things of that nature, but they're floating. But it's not supposed to, nothing, it will be impossible to have things on top of each other in this sense. They're not floating. It's actually it's supposed to read it as in is like those items are side by side, but they're not giving you a realistic representation, but giving you pieces of information. That's how you're supposed to look at it. I just wanted to share that with everybody, because people kind of twist things a lot, and we've had so much conversations, especially this week, where people talk about trying to prove either somebody's black or somebody's not black. That's not really the aim of this artistic portrayals at all, and really people need to start, actually, apart from just learning how to read the Sesh, also there are certain canons that people need to understand when it comes to Egyptian art. It's not just looking and appreciating as well as people would like to make it appear to be. There are also standards that people need to be aware of. So I just wanted to share that. And like in the last slide, you also see the same thing happening, like the one we saw with the food or the offering items. You see here you have a pool and it's a garden, and you see they're giving you the set of information they're giving you is that there are trees, and then there's a pool, and then in the pool you see the duck, and then you see the fish. The fish obviously is not floating on top of the water. So these are just packing information to tell you what sets of information you have. You see a person over here. This is not the art, the way a modern art would be portrayed in that sense. So we can also just use our way of reading or appreciating modern art and put that on this particular type of art, because then we have to understand how that is done and how that is supposed to be interpreted as well, and then do it correctly. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in as well.
Okay, nice. Anything else?
Not really. I don't have anything else I would share. I mean, apart from, yeah.
I see on the list that you had, can you go back to the other, yeah. So you had head profile, eye in frontal position, shoulders, breast, legs, and you discussed the women and the men?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, anybody on the panel have, now just so everyone know in the chat, I posted the link to join the panel. All right. So that's the Zoom link that you see is pinned, and you can click it and join the panel. And so you're invited. Everyone is invited. This is open. If you have any questions that you want to, say and join the panel, say, or you could type it into the chat, and it could be about what was presented, and then, or something else. anything that we've talked about before on this channel, or any one of us that you've seen talk, or something that you may have come across or studied. All right. So, today is Divine Words Wednesdays. And basically, we slow these conversations down and present something and, deal with that or anything else. So just want to let everyone know who's watching. And obviously in the archives, that link is not going to be live or active. So click the link if you want to be heard. Anybody on the panel have anything? No? All right. Yeah, we definitely had to have some theme music because I'm so used to having something. It's that silence, I'm hearing crickets and things. So okay. But can you, okay, so let me just put something. Was anything that I was looking at? No. So yeah, I mean, there it is. I mean, that was excellent, and that was quick. So when things are excellent and so quick, it's like it's quick and excellent when nobody has any comments or questions.
Yeah, plus everybody that's on our chat, usually we've gone through this a lot. So, it should just be like self-explanatory really. And you could, at this point, you should recognizing the words. We've gone through most of those words multiple times. So it's just, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but that's a good point you made early on when you said that you're sticking to one genre. So these are stelae, various different stelae, and you notice that it has the same vocabulary. So like if you take, like, let's say 10 various different stelae, you're going to walk away out of those 10. You're going to walk away with a lot of overlapping in vocabulary. So imaku, imaki, imaket, you're going to see those three words or variations of that one word on various different stelae in terms of veneration. You're going to see obviously Hotep Dinasut, which you're going to see the offering formula, and then everything that comes with that. And so this happens to be one of those. The first one did not include Hotep Dinasut.
No.
Basically, giving an ID is IDing the figures that are in the image, giving you who they are. All right. So, but it opens it up with a veneration, word for veneration, the venerated ones.
Yes, and then the other thing that I think most people must have noticed on both stelis, we didn't have job titles. So, well, usually in others, you might have like one or two job titles, or some people would just get extravagant a bit and list a lot of, their titles. So these didn't have those, but both of them did show, lineage, some type of lineage. And in this, both of them, they use the mess n. Sometimes we see ear and, but in this set was mess n. So these are the type of things when you try to, when you're doing the same genre for a while, this is how it helps to make things get easier and easier, and also to recognize certain words and add more words in your vocabulary.
Okay. All right. So anybody in the chat, like I said, the link is there. If you have any questions, I'm looking at the chat. And if you pop in, introduce yourself and fire away. But anybody on the panel have anything? If not, this would be probably the quickest Divine Words Wednesdays that we have ever had.
Okay. Well, if people don't have nothing to say, I would like to say that just notice that we read the glyphs and identified the people, but didn't add anything. We didn't add our speculations of what the people could be, what they're doing. We didn't embellish anything. We just let the text tell us what is that, and then leave it at that, which is what people really do need to do. And you will see sometimes if the glyphs are not too clear, you will see some parts, some inscriptions. Most people you will not put. They might give an opinion on what it is, but scholars will just say it might be this, there's evidence for this, there's that and that, but it will not be something they say this is it, like this is what it is and whatnot. But usually when you have the text, you don't want to ignore them, and then you don't want to add anything that is not on the text, unless you're adding something that is of that person in a different type of inscription somewhere that is giving additional information that is not on there. But what we have is what we go with, and we don't add or we don't speculate.
Okay, nice. Anything else?
Yeah, got one question.
Mhm.
Kind of outside of presentation. Does every text, like, say, the on a wall where they have the big figures and then they have text along those? Would the text always describe what the large figures are doing specifically?
Yes. So the same way we write books today, where you have illustrations that
Mm-hmm.
visually represent whatever the context, whatever's being said in the actual writing. So it's really no different from that. And so usually wherever you see a figure or you see a scene, some activity going on and everything, if you see glyphs along that accompany that scene, they are definitely married. They're married at the hip. And so it's going to tell you what's going on in the scene. Most likely it's going to tell you who's doing the doing, and then what they're doing. And so there's a lot of, if we just get out of the scribe's way and allow the scribes of the culture to inform us, we would be much better off with that. And so that's the whole point of learning the language as best we can, so that we can actually do that. And that's the whole concept of allowing the ancestors to speak. But to answer your question short is yes, wherever you see figures, even on statuary, a lot of the statues would have at its base, on the base or along the back, somewhere in some area on the statue, you'll find the name or what the statue pertains to, et cetera, et cetera. So you pretty much count on that.
All right.
Yep. And so, yeah.
Yeah, never separate the image and the text when they're there together. That's a no-no.
So I can't just eyeball the figures and try to assume what it is they're doing without reading the text.
Right.
Because that would be that would be kind of confusing.
Exactly. And we have is a nickname for that. That's lookership. And so here's the thing. With research, if you're applying, research to an issue and you're investigating something, or if you're going down the path of a scientific endeavor, there's nothing wrong with speculating. But you never want to end with speculation. Speculating and guessing is a healthy thing, but that's an early step. That's an early step in the process, and you don't want to finish with a guess or a speculation. You can start with that, but you don't want to end with that. And that's
Yeah,
what
you
people
have
have
to
to understand.
assess it. Yeah.
So we have to understand that and kind of get that in our heads, and just advocate that to everyone to understand that. Opinions are the same way. People actually misuse the word opinion. We have sayings like everyone has an opinion. Opinions are like noses. Everybody has one, and all of that. which is true, because an opinion, the actual historical meaning of the word opinion is to think, so everybody has their thoughts. They won't put their thoughts on something. Like, I think it's this, and we call that opinionating or opine, etc. But you don't want to end there, or your opinion should be rooted or anchored in facts, in something. So people will give an opinion about something that they know nothing about. Like, I can give an opinion about a movie I've never seen only because I can. But now we have to judge the value of my opinion. So if I've never seen a movie, but here I am running my mouth, giving you my opinion of it, the value of that opinion would be pretty much zero. And so we have to understand that opinions have weight, and I don't think enough people understand. So people think that just giving an opinion is enough, but no, those opinions come with weight. And somebody's opinion could be light as a feather, somebody's opinion could be heavy. That means you have stacked on top of that opinion a bunch of things that it's rooted or based in some kind of fact or logical premise and flow and stuff like that, not just some opinion just because you have a mouth and a larynx and a voice box and you can speak and make noise come out your mouth. That's an opinion, yes, technically, but it has no value at all. So we
Yeah,
have to understand that.
yeah. I just thought about an idea like, what if people that, they're not really keen with Egyptology? What if they're just using the same method they use to observe, like the Hebrew temples, ziggurats and stuff like that? What if they're using that same method to look at the walls of Kemet?
Well, I don't know about that, because it's just different. I mean, when you kind of messed up when you just brought up Hebrew temples, because those temples are completely incompatible with Egyptian temples.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, it's a possibility that they're probably using that same method to read or try to, you know, elaborate what's going on in those temples. I just hope they're not doing that. I hope they're not doing that in comparison.
Yeah, well, I do know that a lot of people look at the glyphs as pretty pictures, and early on, before they were deciphered, the the um the idea was that these are pictures and they're symbols. It's all symbolic and things. They didn't believe that the glyphs actually represented a language, and so they were reading it pictorially instead of logographically, like these are actual words, or these are actual represent phones or phonemes in the language and words and so on and so forth. And so and some people still do that to this day. They look at the glyphs and they're like, oh wow, and they try to interpret the glyphs literally. And I've experienced that quite a few times, even on YouTube. Some years ago, my brother made an attempt to read some glyphs, and he was doing it in that way. And I wish I had that. I wish I had that. That's back when YouTube we have Google Hangouts. And so I wish I had that to post that, because show what not to do. Yeah.
Yeah, even the determinative. Even recently, where somebody looks at a determinative, and everybody in here already knows what a determinative is or classifier is. They give you like the semantic value of something. So you will notice that people who look at images, because the images that actually accompany those texts are usually like large determinatives. You're not supposed to be just doing all kinds of abracadabra stuff and reading, you know, whatever it is you want, because, you know, like regular art, everybody comes out with their own interpretation. That's not the case in here. Like you can't have like a thousand different interpretations of the inscriptions from Kemet, but that's what people do. And then they take the other particular determinative, and you will see, because we already know our determinative is moved, and it just gives you, it adds a semantic value, so you know what the words, you know, you're reading are, you know, because some words we have like homographs, homophones, and all those kind of things, so they will help you in those instances. But you see somebody taking a determinative, taking it out of its function and applying words that don't apply to the determinative on its own. So you see exactly that, like what they do with the images, they do with the glyphs, and it's just it's crazy. Like when you see stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah. So ETM Hotep, Brother Donnie, I don't know if you had any questions or any comments. I see you, you know, welcome to the panel.
Greetings. No, I'm just listening, and if anything, I'd like to go back and because I was late to hear what you your message this morning. So
Well,
as
you
far
said
as
you said this morning, so that means you're not on the East Coast. Oh,
well, you know, obviously, yeah, okay, you got me. So no, I'm not on the East Coast.
okay, all right. No, I'm just saying, yeah, that's because I'm like, okay, you must be on the other side of the planet. You know, he said the morning time.
I'm in Texas, man. I'm in Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay, okay, all right. How's the
So,
weather over there where you at?
oh, it's a beautiful day today.
Okay,
Beautiful day today.
all right.
Got the garage open and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Okay, okay, all right, all right.
But
Mhm.
so I think you pretty much made it clear as far as talking about distinguishing Amos Nefertari. Forgive me if I don't pronounce it right, but uh, her depiction of her just being just like jet black is falsified, because I believe that you showed that in other pictures and stuff, and there was a difference. So like you killed that argument, and you know, I caught the tail end of that, and I'm just I'm just here, man. I'm just here. I'm
Okay,
learning. Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. Well, with that, as a matter of fact, you know, even with what Emicat presented today, let me just reshare that real quick. What Emicat presented today. Um, give me 1 second.
Peace to everybody.
Hotep.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we look at you all should see my screen. Just make sure you all confirm you can see my screen.
Yes.
2.
Okay. So even with what Emicat presented today, so if you look at the figures, and she mentioned this earlier already as well. So this is what people have to really understand, is that in Kemet, there really wasn't a thing as art in the same sense that we look at it today. And so sometimes we do things that have no anchor in meaning. And so a lot of people will say things like a picture is worth 1,000 words and stuff like that, because and what that's implying is that if you see a picture hung up on a wall in a museum or art gallery, and people crowd around that picture, what it's saying is that if there was 1,000 people standing there, those 1,000 people will interpret that picture differently 1,000 times. And every time, every single person will have a different interpretation of that picture for 1,000 times. Now, here's the thing. If that were the case, we would never be able to use that system to communicate, because it would be too much ambiguity. You know, if every picture could possibly be any one of 1,000 words, then that's not a very useful tool to use to communicate. And so the problem is people look at the Egyptian hieroglyphs or the Sesh Netcher, and even the scenes and the vignettes and the artwork and everything, they look at it in that sense of vagueness and ambiguity, but it's actually not. And so that's why we go through what we go through with the glyphs themselves, but even the figures, what we refer to as the vignettes, that are accompanied with the text, all the way down to the art itself. And so I say that to say that the colors that they use, they all have meaning. They're used for certain reasons. And so, when I was explaining about Ahmos Nefertari, a lot of people use her depiction when she's jet black. They're using black pigment to paint her. They use that to support a false claim that her skin was like that. And that's just not true. Just like on this picture here, should I get my cursor over here? Like on this picture here, just want to get an arrow here. Like, we know that women are not built this way. Women do not have one breast. You could see the shoulders are full frontal, but yet she has one breast. Now, we know women are not built this way. I mean, if, not naturally, as something happens or occurs, but we know people are not built this way. So there's a certain pattern to the artwork in Kemet, and
Right.
the scribes and the artisans, they establish a canon or standards that lasted thousands of years. It kind of varied slightly, but it was well-established canons. And so what Imikab mentioned earlier, you have the head in profile, which is very normal. You have the shoulders that are front on. And what you'll notice is that people used to talk about this back in the day, where you see two left hands and stuff. Why the Egyptians do that? Two left hands and everything like that. Not realizing that what they exercise or what they did is what
That's
we
that A perspective and all that old good stuff that you went over already.
exactly, aspective art, and that's what we call it today. But they didn't call it that, but that's what they've done, and we name it now today a whole style of art called aspective versus perspective. And so we have that going on. But down to the colors, though, these are standard canons. And so this is just one of a range of pigments that were used to represent the Egyptians themselves for the men. And here we have a pale. This was probably not as pale as we see here, because obviously this is not vibrant. This is faded, and all these artifacts are very, very old. But it usually be a yellowish pigment, from pale to yellow or gold. And then for the men, it would be, reddish brown and that range. Okay.
Can I speak for a second?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think because I watched that video that you put out, and it's kind of like, to me, you kind of asked some questions too after putting everything you had to put out there. But it's kind of like, I think, what I'm saying, I ain't the sharpest dude. I ain't no college guy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying, I can get pretty rigorous. But all that to say, like, I think the simple people, I myself, the lay, just want to hear, you know what I'm saying? Not me, because I get what you're saying, but I think people want to hear, like, yes, they're black, but you don't narrow it down like that. You just say they're African, and I understand that, but some people they have to hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that you're absolutely right. You 100% right, correct on that. And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing that, and we need to stop, because not that they wouldn't be called socially black today, not that they wouldn't, but that is actually a detriment to the conversation to do that. And you know, and I go into that and explain it. The modern social constructs of race should never be retroactively projected into the past,
You
because
went over it today.
Mhm.
You went
say
over
it
it
again.
today. You went over it today, and I think I get it, but that's what I'm trying to say. Like, not everybody gets it. They not that rigorous with the knowledge and stuff like that. They just need a simple yes or no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. You're absolutely right. And me, what I advocate is for people to. I'm trying to break that up. I'm trying to break up that lazy, spoon fed. I just want to hear if they're black, because then it's like, okay, if you find out that they're black, then what? You know, but they never styled, and we shouldn't look at it that way. What I keep saying is that the Egypt is an African country, even to this day. It's on the continent of Africa. It didn't move anywhere. Like Egypt didn't like all of a sudden go over to Australia. Um, it's on the continent of Africa. The people are African, and so for us to drill down and be so concerned and focused on whether on their racial classification, that is a clear tall tale sign that we have been programmed under this social construct, and that's part of the game. And so we're not tapping into the genius of Kemet. We're so worried about how we're going to classify Egypt. And you got to ask yourself why. Like why? For the people who do that, you got to say, well, why am I doing it? Why am I?
Because that's easy. That's easy to do because time after time, I'm gonna tell my age. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So in my household, uh, what was her name? The girl with the white lady with the blue eyes. She played. Man, what was her name? What was the Ptolemaic so-called queen? Somebody help me, please.
Cleopatra.
Cleopatra. And then I seen that movie when I was growing up, and then I never saw no Africans in the background, not one, or even in the front. So to me, it registered that something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And now getting more into the knowledge, I know that there was a Ptolemaic period where they did rule. So, but I'm just saying, it was, hey, that's what I know.
Right. And I even brought up the Ptolemies last night when I gave that presentation about Ahmose Nefertari in terms of the canon. So I do want to show. I want to find something and I want to share this and show us. Let me put my screen back on here. I want to show this because I want everybody to see what that canon was, what that standardized canon was. So I'm just going to put it on the screen here. Let's see if I can just, and you all know me with my whiteboard here. I use a whiteboard. All right. So hopefully everybody can see that.
Too.
Okay. So that is a color swatch of the various pigments that are used to represent the Rimage, the ancient Egyptians. Okay. That spanned 3,000 plus years. Okay. So these are the various different pigments that you will find in most of the art, over 90% of the art, especially on walls, coffins, and things like that in the temples. Now, when you get to statuary, it's a little bit different. Statues, the wooden statues, especially. But when it comes to all of the artwork that you see when you Google Egyptian art and everything that people share on social media and stuff like that, these 9 different colors are pretty much the range right there. Okay. And so there was a standard, there was a canon. So the remnants were reflected in any of these colors. And then other people were distinguished by using the style of hair, the dress, and even the pigments that was used to depict them. For example, the southern neighbors of Kemet were depicted in darker colors than these that you see here. Darker colors. So here's the thing. Here's where the conversation is supposed to shift. We're supposed to get to know and appreciate the Egyptians for being Egyptians. We're not supposed to get to know them because their skin, we believe, is black. Because they distinguish themselves from their neighbors. And so doing the black thing is what's going to do. It's going to amalgamate everybody. We're going to have this flat blackness again, like we have here in America. In the United States, we have this flat black, but on that level, you have everybody's black. But then beneath that level, you have differences. You have people who are from the Caribbeans.
Have nationalities.
Right. You have people who are in the United States from a Caribbean country that are in the United States that on the higher level of blackness, they'd be considered black, but yet they're not African American. So you have different types of black, even within our environment here in the United States. You got African Americans, you got Jamaican Americans, you have Trinidad Tobago American. You have people from different places that would be considered black, but they're different. They have a different heritage. They have a different heritage.
Okay.
And so we have to understand that. And what people are trying to do is they're trying to create this flat black on the continent of Africa. And that does us no good, when we're studying a people, because people distinguish themselves based on culture. And so that's what we should be respecting. That's what we should be identifying, not their skin color. Because if that's the case, then all you have to do is pull up the skin map, the UVB map of the whole Earth, and then pull up the skin map, and you'll see that the UVB or the UV A, B, and C map overlaps or overlays with the skin map perfectly. So that means at a certain latitude on the Earth, people are going to be of the same very close range in skin tone. And so if we're picking a skin tone and say, okay, they're black, then that means that everybody in a certain zone around the whole world is black.
Yeah.
But what does that do for us to know the people? All it does is just blur everything. It's just like, okay, everybody's black on this latitude. We could pick the equator. Everybody along the equator is black. Now
Yeah.
what? Now what? Like, that doesn't tell me anything about the people.
Yeah, that I mean they're you neither.
Right. And yeah, and here's another thing. Just because people have the same skin tone, and you may call that skin tone something, and based on the skin tone, that's a unifying element. But a person of your same skin tone can be your 180-degree enemy.
Mm.
And if you look at our history here, we tend to drop our guards when dealing with people who we feel are like us. And then people who we feel are not like us, we have our guards up. We have like this force shield up. And then we remove the force shield and get comfortable when we're around people that we perceive to be like us. And recent history will tell you is that most organizations, Black organizations, are brought down from the inside,
Facts.
from people who have the same skin tone.
Facts.
Whether they were coerced or a puppet of an external thing, that doesn't matter.
And they probably have a different ethnicity.
Because think about it. Let's just pick an organization. the Black Panther Party. Imagine the Black Panther Party and a straight up and down what we would call a European would try to infiltrate the Black Panther Party. It can't be done. That person would stick out, or the Nation of Islam. That person would stick out. So they you can't do that. So you have to send somebody in. Say it again.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm saying so if there was going to be any infiltration of these quote unquote Black organizations,
Like
you would have to send somebody in that looks like the organization.
Yeah.
That's just common sense. It's called camouflage in military.
Record shows that.
Right. And so what I'm saying is that the flat black and spending so much focus on skin color is all the way around just detrimental. It does nothing for us to get to know the Egyptians in this case, their genius, how they did everything, the society, how did they last so long, how did they unify, how did they stay unified, how did they solve their problems, how did they resolve conflict, how did they fall, how did it all end? I mean, everything. We have thousands of questions we can ask. We're not even getting into that. We're so worried about their skin.
Yeah.
That's a good.
One
that's a
thing I
very-
wanted to say, one more thing I wanted to say was like when he was talking about social construct and how that's done to confuse us, is because I can see how clearly that confuses us. Because if you go strictly by how the social construct works, in Africa, anything above the Sahara is considered white. And everything below that is considered Black and African or whatever. But the whole entire continent is African. So it's just best to leave it as that instead of taking a foreign construct and placing it on the entire continent.
Yes, exactly. And that's a point to make is that north of the Sahara is considered white, especially if you come over here to the United States, you'll be classified on the census as white. Anything sub-Sahara, you'd be considered Black.
Plus, I think like using the category of Black is actually the most non-specific form of identification you will ever meet out here, because if we are just honest, what people call Black is got nothing to do with skin color, because it's more to do with a lifestyle or attitude or something. Because let's be honest, like when you say Black, it could be somebody who's jet black, it could be somebody who's like very, very pale, and still be considered Black out here. So it's really nothing to do with skin color. And that's why you find like it would be easy for somebody also who's white to pass as being Black. They just get a little tan, they braid their hair, they talk a certain way. So that is like the most defenseless form of identification that can just be used and misused. It's like it has no value because anybody can be it, And it's like when you think about it, like to be a part of any kind of group, any kind of organization, nobody uses looks, like even just a club, like something arbitrary, like going to a club. Like they're not going to look at you outside to see like if you're just like you look like you're above 18 or above 21. Like sometimes it might do like if you look younger, you might have to show an ID. So it's not just about the looks, there has to be something that shows that you are part of what the criteria that is allowed to do something or be part of something. But when it comes to Black, it's just really, really like, there's nothing to do. Black is there. What is it? Because it's very confusing. It's either this or it's either that. Like anybody can be Black, literally. So using that to identify yourself has no value at all.
Exactly. It's and so that's been what I've been advocating is for us to steer away from that. And I do that unapologetically. Period. It has no value in that at all. And in fact, not only does it not have any value, because it's one thing to have zero effect. When you say no value, that's like null, zero. But it's more than that. It actually has a detrimental effect across the board, us socially classed, and from social behavior all the way to just conversations. That's at the root of a lot of arguments, is whether something or someone is black. And that's, people really need to learn ontology and taxonomy on how to categorize things and lay out criteria. Because if skin color is going to be the criteria, then we're doomed. Because skin color does not tell you anything about a person other than the skin color. That's it. And people were not identified like that nowhere in ancient times or in history. That's a recent thing. People were identified based on their overall disposition, which included a laundry list of things. How did they dress? What language they spoke? What were their weapons? How did they defend themselves? How did they provide food? Were they agriculturists? Were they nomadic? Were they hunter-gatherers? Were they, herders and things? All of these different things. What were their rituals? What did they do collectively together? All those identifying elements that we would call collectively culture is king. That's how you distinguish different people. It wasn't their skin. It just wasn't their skin. So the focus on skin from the very get-go is just detrimental. It's just problematic. And so what I have on my screen here is I just wanted to put this side by side to show the example of the canon that I was speaking about earlier. You can walk through all of the artwork that you find, and this is something that I challenged everybody to do years ago, was to Google Egyptian artwork and find real ones, not reproductions. Find real images of actual artwork, and then try to find one for each dynasty that you can. So going from dynasty 1 all the way to dynasty 30, try to find all the artwork that you can. I mean, not all the artwork from those dynasties. I'm saying pick a very good one, at least one from each dynasty, and then compare it, and you'll see right in front of you a scribal canon or standardized way that they did things, the choice of colors, how they did the glyphs and stuff, with slight variations. I mean, because you're talking about 3,000 years, so they're not going to be spot on every single time. Like it's not like the people of Dynasty 1 made a whole big batch of reddish pigment that they used for the whole 3,000 years. So no, they didn't put this big old bucket of reddish pigment that all the scribes dipped into. No, but there was a standard formula. There was a standard recipe for these pigments, and they stuck to it with a slight, ranges of variations. And so what I'm showing are the 9 main ones. And you can see how the figure on the left is damaged, it's faded, it's damaged, but you can see that it pretty much matched the one in the upper right. I don't know if my cursor can get over here. I don't know can y'all see my cursor? Yeah, this one here. So if I were to move this, can't even move it over there. Move this over here or whatever, you can kind of see it's closer to that. And so if you had, you could take this swatch and that pretty much match it up to pretty much any Egyptian picture. Okay, so anyway, that's that. But yeah, we have to really, really get away from that. And I didn't see anybody else join the panel. But yeah, we have to really, really get away from that, because now we can start focusing on the genius of the people and admire the people for their genius. It's like, we're so worried about looks. That's so superficial. And so when I say this, people feel like, okay, you're trying to take away the African. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, how can I, when Egypt to this very day is on the continent of Africa? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. The Egyptians were definitely African. But what that tells me is when people say that, they're equating African with a color. When Africa itself, indigenous people are a wide range of colors, skin colors, from the Khoisan all the way to the Dinka and the people in the Sahel in South Sudan who have, you know, this rich, darker skin color.
Negro,
It's a wide range. Say it again.
like Negro, if there's a such thing like Negro features.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot.
And we know we
Africa.
have pale colored brothers and sisters.
Say it again.
Absolutely,
I said, don't we have pale colored brothers and sisters?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's a wide range. Africa is the most diverse continent.
Absolutely. It looked like the palette on the screen,
Right.
if you tell the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just skin color. You know, you got different features, different skull shapes, different you know, nose, eyes, the combinations thereof, different hair. I mean, so it gets really, really silly to try to categorize people based on something that everybody has. That doesn't make sense. You can't get any value out of that. Like, think about it. Anthropology is the study of human endeavors and things, everything under that, humanities and all of that, anthros. So if we just stopped at human, like, okay, let's say we categorize, we create a category, and the only requirement was that you had to have two legs, you know, being bipedal. That means all Homo sapiens sapien would be in that category. Now, how useful is that to the study of humanity under anthropology? It's not valuable at all, because you just have a big bucket of everything, you know. So it makes no sense. So it makes no sense to make everybody black, or to try to make everybody black, to categorize people like that. Makes absolutely no sense. You're not going to learn about anybody that way, and it blinds us to so many things. And you know, so I mean, we can have a whole long conversation on the detrimental effects of doing that. And I may spark that conversation one day real soon.
Question. Don't you think the language also connects to who's related? Like even like say, you know, the Adamese don't talk or communicate with anybody on Africa. In Africa, they don't really have a translation for what anyone is saying over there.
Well, yeah. Well, communication itself is is an indicator of a group population. Obviously, people who speak the same language are going to have that affinity to group together. So so language is one of the heavier weighted elements of what defines a culture, is the language that you speak, because your entire culture is transmitted through the language. So they go hand in hand. Language is the DNA of culture.
Yeah, well, I mean, the saying is they have like neighboring languages, like cousin languages, like some would derive from off another culture. But
Yeah,
it doesn't roll. It doesn't roll on into no other areas. It doesn't go all across the globe. It stops
right.
somewhere.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So you know, we refer to that, the way you're saying it, we refer to that as a speech community. So the same speech community, you can draw a barrier. You know, you can have like a barrier and put people of the same speech in that barrier. We refer to it as a speech community. And so there's a limiter around it. And so speech community is distinct from another one. So the French speaking community is not the same as the Spanish speaking community. And so language can serve as a proxy for that, because like I said, language is one of the biggest elements within culture. And it's nothing to do with your genetics, because a person, there's no gene for what language you speak,
Yeah.
you know. And so, like, for example, there are people who we would look at a picture of and we would say, okay, that person, we would assume, okay, that person is Chinese. He's from China. And that person, once you meet them and they open their mouth, They're full on Jamaican. They speak in Jamaican with the most Jamaicanist accent and the whole nine. But on appearance, you would think that okay, he's Chinese and he's about to speak Mandarin or whatever. And then he shock you because I'm telling a story that happened to me. That literally happened to me. I was one day. This was a long time ago. This was when I was at school, University of Maryland, and I was in the fast food restaurant, and I got my food, sat down to eat, and I was eating my food, and then one of the workers that were there, he was cleaning the tables behind me, so my back was turned to him, but he was talking to some people that were sitting behind me as well, and as I hear him, he sound like a Jamaican, like I didn't have to turn around, like I knew that whoever's voice I'm hearing is a full-fledged Jamaican, like straight up and down. And I'm sitting there eating, and then he gets to my table or right beside me to keep cleaning up. And I look at him, and I just kept eating my food. And I had no idea that person was the same person I heard until he was in front of me, and then he had to say something to somebody, and I was like, "What?" I was shocked. I was like, "No way."
You met a real Chinese man. Or the people in Jamaica call Chinese man.
Okay. Well, that shocked me, and that happened a long time ago. And that day, that was like a wake up for me to not assume like that made that I learned something.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I learned something. I was like, man, this guy is straight up Jamaican. Like he was from Jamaica. I had to ask him. Matter of fact, I asked him. I started talking to him. I was like, man, I said, hold up, I have to talk to this guy. He was like straight up Jamaican. And
It's a large population of
he
Asians.
told me to get it all the time. Say it again.
I say it's a large population of Asians in Jamaica.
Yeah, well, he was definitely one. Definitely.
Yeah, that happened to me too with that Indian looking guy was speaking pidgin like Nigerian. And I mean, if you didn't look, you assume when somebody's speaking that is a Nigerian person, and especially like somewhere, not even from the city, because he had a deep accent, and then he was Indian. So that happens a lot. Like, you can't really assume, like, you can't tell language, but genetics don't tell language. Plus that would mean like, your genetics will change with every time you learn a new language or something, which is impossible.
You're right.
Right. But listen, I was talking to this guy that I just described, and he was like fresh from Jamaica. Like that job he had right there was his first job in the States and everything. So he was fresh. So, and I can't imitate it, but when I say a hard Jamaican accent, I'm talking about like the very stereotypical accent that you hear. I mean, everything, so, but MK, you sharing something?
Oh yeah, I just went and stole this from Jehudi my arts page, but it was to show because that was the point where you were talking about the reddish brownish paint, and just the paints that they use to draw to draw the stuff that we see. You can even see this blue. I'm not sure if we had it in the inscription that I was showing, but yeah. So that's the reddish brown. And some people would argue down about this color, and it's like, like it's supposed to be red or something, but it is like a reddish brown. I just wanted to show that, and just showing the color palette for the scribes.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead before I go to the next one.
Okay, no, I'm just saying these are good things for people to see because it makes it more real, because a lot of people talk about Egypt in a fantasy mode. We talk about Egypt as if it was like a snap, crackle, pop thing. No, Egypt was a full-fledged culture, civilization, kingdom and it lasted for 3,000 years. The United States of America, as the United States, is only what 240 miles around it, 250 years old, and look how much has changed over that period of time just in the United States alone. So imagine a country and a kingdom lasting for 3,000 years. You know what I'm saying? That is amazing. And we talk about it as if it only lasted like 20. You know, we talk about Egypt like it's a movie, a 2-hour movie. And we have to stop doing that. We have to start like bringing the culture back to, you know, more reality. At least when we discuss it. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I advocate what I advocate. And we have to stop romanticizing things and just lie. Like we have to exaggerate and lie to feel good. We gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, like how Donnie said he grew up watching that Cleopatra movie. I grew up watching the Mummy series.
Mm.
So everything I know, Imhotep would be a white bald-headed guy to me. If I didn't really, try to delve into what Egypt really was.
Let me just remind everybody in the chat, in case you didn't see it at the top, the link to come on the panel is pinned to the top of this chat on YouTube. All right. So if you're interested in joining the panel and sharing something, asking questions, or whatever the case is, make sure you hit the link. All right. We'll spend a little bit more time here. At the top of the hour, 11 o'clock, I think we're gonna probably shut it down. So if anybody has anything to discuss, make sure you hit that link.
Yeah, and so I was just showing a picture or different pictures of mirror because somebody asked on the chat what the lady was holding in her hand, and that was a papyrus mirror. So these like examples of the papyrus mirror I just wanted to show. But you could it was on the stele that we did.
Right. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess that was for
Can I make a
Katie.
comment?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I think I don't have my words in place or anything like that. This is freestyle. What is it, Wednesday? So a lot of the times, like me for myself, like, okay, I listen to you guys and stuff like that, Dr. Ben and things of that nature. But sometimes when we make references, we don't say, for example, we don't say ISIS. We'll say Aset and stuff like that. And for a lot of the people in the chat, or no, I'm not gonna say in the chat, but for me, it was like, why are they not using African names? And then I talked to a lady who's an Egyptologist, and she told me that because, this is the normal consensus. And I thought they were being like trying to cover up the Africanness in it. You know what I'm saying? But when she explained it to me, she was just like, it wasn't the case. It's like people say the Book of the Dead. And anybody correct me when I said, why do you call it that? That's not what it's called. And I told her, I was quoting Dr. Ben, trying to be slick. And I said, it's the book of coming forth by day, by night, or something like that. I could be wrong, y'all. Don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm learning. And she said, no, it's actually the utterances of coming forth by day, by night. And she said the reason why they do that is because it's just common to non-specialists. And it's just like easier for y'all. So like it's just like y'all have a language that y'all can speak to each other and you guys get it. But the lay, you kind of got to make it easier for them. I'm just, but I'm done.
No, that's a. Oh, you had something to say, Kadeem?
No, I was just asking. It was like, did they use those terms for just a layman example?
Yeah, well, see, and so there's a term for that. There's a term for that difference, and it's called specialty nomenclature. So So a non-specialist way of saying things, we call that lay. Lay person and lay conversation. And then you have the more specific nomenclature. And so every single discipline has its own nomenclature. The law profession, legal professionals, medicine, various different sciences, and various different departments under anthropology and genetics and all that good stuff. And so you have to learn the lingo in order to, swim around in that discipline. And some people don't do that. They skip that. And it's just a bigger issue of microwaving everything. And that's what I was speaking to before we came on the air. I was saying, and I'll just repeat it here, is that like what I'm observing on social media, inclusive of YouTube and the different platforms, I'm seeing a lot of people fuss. They have fussing matches, misnomer debates. But if you look at what people are doing, the people that are doing the most fussing, they're not very learned in whatever it is that they're discussing. And so we have to get back to the proper way of doing things where if you are a novice and a beginner, you're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be silent on the issues. And I gave the real example in the Masonic Lodge in Freemasonry. When you are accepted and you are initiated as an entered apprentice, you have no say-so. Even though you have successfully been initiated and gone through the whole thing for your first degree or entered apprentice degree, you have no voice. You are given a new name called caution, and you are not to speak about anything outside of the lodge. And in the lodge, you have no say so. You can't vote. You can't do anything. And that's done now to anybody who's not a part of that system. That may seem a little harsh, but that's exactly how it should be. And it's like that for a reason, because it's basically saying that you don't know enough to say anything. So be quiet until you gain more degrees. So you have to go through your fellow craft and become a master mason. You're really not a mason until you're a master mason. That's when you get your voting rights and so on and so forth. So I was using as an example that's what educational systems should be set up to be. People need to be quiet as a beginner, and just get the lessons, dig in, become more proficient and competent before speaking. So people are speaking prematurely, and so, and I gave the example specifically about the argument about this phrase "seker unk," meaning bound for life. And it doesn't mean bound for life. Anybody who's actually done a more in-depth study of the language knows that seker in that sense is a passive participle, one who is smitten, struck, injured, or whatever case is. It doesn't mean bound. So people assume the word unk there is the word unk meaning life. If that's the case, then they're treating seker to mean bound, and it doesn't mean that. So they're not even correct on the meaning of the first part of the phrase, even if unk did mean life. And then they got to explain how they're using for life. How did the ancient Egyptians, the Remich, form phrases that will say X is for Y? In what way? How is that syntactically structured, and so on and so forth? Was it done, through syntax, or was it done morphologically? And so all those things have to be in consideration. And nobody's going to do that if you're just starting out. You're just going to live in a dictionary, look up a word. Okay, unk means life, and seker could mean captive. Okay, and you just make up things from there, and you can't do that. And so that's a problem. And so people are prematurely. Now, there's nothing wrong with speculating. Like I said earlier, part of the scientific process, part of the research process, is to speculate, is to guess, is to observe and give an opinion at the start, but you should never end there. And that's what's happening. People are coming up with, opinions, and then they want to argue. And that's not, you got to argue after you finish, not while you're at the step one. You're not ready to argue. Just like I said, Freemasonry, you can't say anything at degree 1 at all. So why should it be allowed, in our environment with this kind of stuff? It shouldn't. But it happens, and that's a problem. So we need to get away from that. And I know some of the things that I've covered are, and what's interesting, I've covered quite a bit over the years on some popular assumptions and misinformation, like, the aliens building the pyramids, aliens being in the glyphs, the light bulb stuff, dinosaurs in Egypt and the dinosaur glyphs. From there to the Kemetic yoga postures, those kind of things, to Kemet, meaning the land of the black skinned people. These are I know they're not popular, when I bring these up and stuff, and I understand that. So this is no different. I'm telling people, like, yeah, the Egyptians are black, but I mean African. But if you want to call them black and use almost Nefertari, then nah, you're not gonna be able to do that or anything, So this is like an against the grain type of advocacy, and I get it, I understand it, but the thing is, people can get mad or they don't like it, but they can't refute it. They can't refute it.
But it just shows how twisted our priorities are, because if you look at it, it's embarrassing, first of all, that we are, years and years and decades, let's just say decades, are behind on these studies compared to other schools of Egyptology. But then if you look at even just from the birth of Egyptology on its own, those people who spearheaded it, obviously they knew that those people had nothing to do with them. But that didn't stop them from, trying to figure out the genius behind that particular civilization. And then once they got to it, it was more of what can we take and what can we use? And we could see, how things changed once the decipherment took place, like when it comes to the sciences and technology and things of that nature. So then here comes we, like, behind. And the only thing we're concerned about is like what their homosexualities, it was in Kemet, why they're black, just crazy stuff, as opposed to even like we should be ahead in the sense that there's that people have already built the knowledge, that we should just be not starting from scratch, but taking that and then taking it way farther. But that's not what people are doing, and it's just embarrassing, really, because we have very, very twisted priorities. It's crazy.
I want to show something. I just want to bring something to the forefront. I'm use this as an example. I've done this before, but I don't mind repeating myself as necessary. So I just want to show you all this here. Okay, so take a look at this picture. All right. The first thing you'll notice is that on the left, you see some kids wearing green, greenish lime green shirt. And on the right, you'll see people wearing a red shirt. So that should be, the first thing that pops out. All right. So I know you all can see that. Now, here I'm going to build an analogy, a comparison. So on the left, we have the green shirts. So we're going to call these people on the left green shirts. And we're going to call the people on the right red shirts. Now, that is a way of categorizing things. And so this is like, so what I'm explaining is just a very surface, brief way of how ontology and taxonomy works. So what we tend to do is we categorize things based on similarities and differences, the ratio between the two. All right. And so if we recognize patterns that are repeated, we tend to group things that fit into that same pattern and repetition. So we see a pattern here. We see a bunch of people here wearing the same color shirt. So we tend to group these together. On the right, we see a bunch of people wearing red shirts, which is the same pattern. So we group these together. Now that becomes a level. So let me just put that here. So at a very high level, and mind you, this is not exhaustive at all. I'm just showing this very short example. So we call this will be level 1. Okay. At level 1, we have, the top level, we have green and we have red. Now, if we go down, we're going to get more specific. So remember, specificity is going downward, and vagueness or arbitrary, ambiguity is going up. Okay. So at the top level, we have green and we have red. But now if we drill down, all that tells us so far is that we got a group of people with green shirts. But now we drill down, we can have another level. So let's just say level 1. I'm gonna try to do this quick. Yeah. So level 1 is shirt color. All right. Not short, but shirt color. Okay. So that's a level. And then we have a more specific level. This will be level. Well, I should go the other way around, but I'm just gonna put this level 2. Now we got gender. So now we can start separating each side. So among the green shirt wearers, we can separate gender. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 girls and however many boys. So the point is we could separate gender, male, female, and likewise on the right-hand side. So level 2 would be gender. And so without dragging this out, you can see where I'm going. What I'm saying is that identification involves multiple levels. And what people tend to do, they when we have these conversations, people don't know what level they're on and sticking to it. People tend to get on a level and then blend it with the other levels and then argue. And you can't do that. So, and how many girls? I probably miscounted them, but that's the point there. Now, so we have that level gender, and we can go into
Age.
Age. We can have a level of age, age range, and whatnot. And then so it's many, but let's get to the level of DNA. And so here we know that all these people are not related. They're not genetically siblings. They're not brothers and sisters or anything like that. So what does that mean? So what that alone will tell us is that just because you have on a green shirt, you're not of the same family. Like this girl right here is not in the same nuclear family as this boy right here. They're not brothers and sisters. The girl right here and this girl right here, they're not sisters. Okay. So just because you have a green shirt on does not make you blood relatives, immediate blood relatives. So going back to my earlier point, us arguing whether the Egyptians are black, still, or even people today, we don't have to go back to Egypt. We can start today. If we argue about the blackness of people, what essentially we're doing is we're arguing the shirts. We're like, nah, that person does have a green shirt on. Oh yeah, that person has a green shirt, but guess what? How far or how valuable really is the fact that they're wearing green shirts? It tells us nothing. We have to go further in to be more specific, to learn, to have some more value with that. So us arguing over the surface skin issue, we're not getting to know the people. So if I argued that oh, it's green shirt, green shirt, green shirt. Guess what? I'm gonna miss out on the fact that we got boys and girls here. I'm gonna miss out on the fact that some of them have glasses on, other ones don't. I'm gonna miss out on the fact that some of them have hats on and some of them don't. I'm gonna miss out on the fact that some of them have shorts on, some of them have pants on. Like there's so much more that we can learn from here instead of just lumping them all together because they have on green shirts. And these children have different backgrounds, different from different families and everything. And so likewise, just because we can call people black, that says nothing. All that says is what skin zone, UVB zone that you likely grew up in. That's it. And so that's a shallow way of looking at things. Very, very shallow. And that's what people are arguing, spending decades, ever since the 70s, decades trying to argue the skin color of the Egyptians. And so, you know, so I'm just using this as an example because this should be like really, really clear and obvious. And I only use this side, but we can go over here. We got, you know, men and women. Some of them have sunglasses on, some of them don't. Some of them have clear, some of them have sun. Some have long hair, short hair. Some dark skin, lighter skin. You know, and all that. You know what I'm saying? So we could actually look at this picture and start picking out the distinctions. But if we just try to argue over a red shirt, you know, we're in the same thing. So that's the problem that we're having. And so we got to move away from that. And people got to stop advocating that. Like we spent decades from 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2010, and 20. That's 6 decades, 60 years. 60 years of trying to convince each other that people are black. That's crazy. That's like me right now convincing you that these people have on green shirts.
That's crazy.
No, for real, because once I convince you, then what?
No, I was sorry, Wuja, can I speak?
Yeah.
No, because I was just thinking about it and like I'm a mixed person. Like I'm Portuguese. My dad is quote unquote Black African American. And it's every now and then I'll get it from the other side. It'd be like, you ain't black. And I'll just be like, I won't spend 10 seconds arguing with you what I am. So maybe if I take that and apply it to what you're saying, you know what I'm saying? I'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm just saying we really need to start moving beyond this wall that's the social construct of race. We can't see everything through that lens. That was not made for this. Listen, that racial classification system that we behave under is very real. So I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying as if it's not real. Social constructs are definitely real because it affects our lives. But for us to constantly crystallize it and inject it into all of our endeavors, that's where it's detrimental. And it was done that way to be that to us. And we did not create that. You know, you look at every ancient culture and historical, like recent history, they didn't classify human populations based on that. Population groups were not based on that. Over on the continent of Africa right now, you have people who are distinct. Like we would look at them like, oh, all of y'all are black. But they don't even behave that way. Like you look at the Maasai in Kenya, look at the Dinka in Sudan. Both of them, we would say over here, we would say, ah, man, both of them are black. But that's where it ends. They're different. Different people, different customs, different languages, the whole thing. And we have to respect that and accept that reality and then act accordingly. You know, we got to behave accordingly. But we want to stop at, oh, they're all black. They're all African. You know, South Africans are African. Now what? You know, so I mean, that's a continent. There's no country called Africa. There's no embassy, no consulate office you can go to. Let me go to the Africa consulate office. There's no entity, no body politic or anything under that. That's a geographical part of the earth that we just call Africa. You know, and then why Africa? Why not South America? I mean, really, people sleep on South America in terms of just a continent, just a piece of geography, land, and its resources. It's huge too. Brazil, I think Brazil is pretty big country over there or down there. But anyway, so I'm just saying we have to move away from that and dig deeper. We can't microwave and just be so superficial. We can't be on the surface all the time. We have to dig. We have to, you know, pop the hood and get up under the hood now. And a lot of people are not really ready for that conversation. So sometimes I'll spark these conversations to, you know, or not even to do this, but this is a result of me sparking a conversation. I'll tend to see who, you know, who can handle those kind of conversations, who can't. You know, so I take, okay, Amos Nefertari. We can take the tomb scene in Ramses III tomb that people use to say, okay, Egyptians are black. They saw themselves just the same way as the Nubians. Like, nope. First of all, the Egyptians never called those people Nubians. So let's stop that. And then, no, they didn't see themselves like those people. In fact, I can show text after text after text after text how the Egyptians intentionally distinguish themselves away from their southern neighbors. Well, not away, but apart.
The last show, that was one of the questions I asked you guys. It wasn't exactly like that, but that was one of the questions I asked you like that. And you guys said they were different, so.
Oh, they were definitely different.
But
So, okay, so I'm just looking at the chat, and so I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing anything. I see 42 tribes. Let me say peace to everybody in the chat again. And I wasn't paying attention to the chat until now. So if there were any questions, again, we had the link pinned up there. But I see 42 tribes says some of those kids would be classified as black in nations that have black races. Yeah, it's the social construct of race is a very, very subjective concept. Very, very subjective because it involves self-identification. You know, if you fill out an application, you could put yourself down as black, African American, choose other, and this, you know, that's a self-identifying thing. Very subjective. It's not scientific at all. You know, and so yeah, we'll get that speaks to its value. You can't rely on that. Dasharab says the Maasai are only different than Dinka because of Cushitic. Oh, only a little different than Dinka because of Cushitic mixture.
Nah.
Listen, if you talk to a Dinka person and you talk to a Maasai person, you don't even have to go that far. Go to Kenya and talk to a Kikuyu and then talk to a Luo person and try to say that y'all are the same or whatever. You'll get chased down the street. You get chased down the street. But again, see, and I apologize. I'm not giving an exhaustive talk on the various levels of identity, but that's a very important thing. And I only showed this picture to illustrate an example of what I was saying earlier. But identity involves many levels, and we cannot blend the levels. You got to pick a level, speak to it, and stay at that level. You can't blend. So, for example, we have the level of continent. So people who are domiciled on the continent we call Africa, they are Africans. Then below that level, you have a level of nationality. If you are a member of a nation, then you can be identified that way. So I always use Kenya as a country for that example. So the Luo, the Maasai, and the Kikuyu are all Kenyans on the level of nationality. But when you go below that level, on a level of ethnicity, they're different. I just named three different things, three different groups of people: Kikuyu, Luo, and Maasai. But they're all Kenyans. And so we keep on drilling down. We'll get to the level of genetics. Genetics will tell a totally different story. And so we have to understand that we can't be on the level of genetics and talk that talk and then pop up on a different level and think that there's a direct correlation. You can't do that because there's no gene for culture, for a particular culture. Like there's no gene. I can't sequence your genome and tell you and find the gene for what language you speak. Now there's a gene for the physical ability to speak, you know, having a voice box and a larynx and all that good stuff, vocal cords. There's genes that instruct to produce those things in the body, but not what language you speak. Just like there's no gene for a culture that you are a member of. And so they don't have direct correlation like that. Each one can help inform the other as proxies to each other, but there's not a direct correlation. And people have to understand that. All right. So we're just going to have to keep driving that point home. The Egyptians were never a homogeneous group of people. They were never a homogeneous population. Never. They were an amalgamation of people from different areas, coming from the east, the Levant, coming from the south, and coming from the west. Okay, over time, they unified and developed a unified conscious identity, and they refer to themselves as the Remage. And that is the birth of ancient Egyptians, the Remage. And they were distinguished from and distinguished themselves from all of their neighbors. The Remage are not the Nehisiu, and the Nehisiu is an umbrella term. And within the Nehisiu, you have different groups of people. You have the Wawat, you have the Iram, you have the Yam, you have Kush or Kash, and those people, and many more in their area that were distinct from the Remage. They didn't see themselves as the same. They kept up that distinction.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So why did they see themselves differently? I mean, maybe I missed it, but why?
Because we group things that are similar. So the more differences you have, we tend to have this threshold of divide or separate. And so I'll give you an example. I mean, we do this all the time, and this goes back to the ultimate study of ontology and taxonomy, but I'll just give an example. So a lion, a panther, a cheetah, a jaguar, a leopard, to name a few. All of those animals that I just named, we will group them collectively under the name of cats. You know, wild cats or large cats. But yet that term cats is the unifying term of those different animals when we drill down. Those are different, distinct animals, but yet we can call them all cats. So that label, that level, wherever the word cats is, that level, that's a level of unity. And then we go down, now we have a level of separation or distinction. So now a lion is a lion, it's different than a leopard and whatnot. But there's enough about all the cats that I mentioned for us to have the ability to name them all cats. But then there are enough similarities among them where we can call them all cats, but then there are enough differences where they can have a category of their own, a subcategory of their own. And that's what you call taxonomy when you do that. And humans, we could do humans the same way. And so, and we label these called nodes.
Okay.
And see, if I was able to, if I had time, like if we started this if we started off our live with this conversation, I would pull up examples and illustrate this. But if you look at nodes, if you look at the macro phylogenetic tree of living organisms and stuff, and you'll see how it's laid out in the branch format. And so certain things go down the line, then it branches off. Well, where that split is, that would be a node. And so cats would be the top level in just what I was saying. And then below that, we see this split.
Hey,
So-
but we'll go.
Yeah.
But can you do this for me? Can you just tell me, like, okay, I get the reference that you're making with the cats. There's all kind of different cats, but okay, that's fine. I get it. But what did they see that they decided to make themselves different? Maybe that'd be a better question.
Well, it's just what we identify today as culture. So one big weighted element is language. The people south of them spoke a different language. I can show text where the Egyptians say so. So the Egyptians say, okay, you don't speak our language, you're not us. And Africans to this very day do the same thing. If you are a inclusive of a group, of an ethnic group that we say today, you have to speak that language. If you don't, you're not part of that group.
Okay.
Okay, so that's just one. I mean, there's a list of things I could mention, but there's everything that you could think of that makes up a culture a culture. That's what they used as grouping criteria
Okay.
for who was who.
Okay.
So for example, I'll give you another example. Within the Remich culture, if you were born and raised in Egypt or Kemet, and you were classified as a Remich, you're one of the people, Remich, and you left and you learned the customs and culture and behavior that was not of Remich, then you were no longer an Egyptian. You were no longer a Remich. So it wasn't about your nativity, and it wasn't about your skin color. It was about your subtotal. You know, when you buy groceries, you have a list of items, and then you see the total on the bottom. That total is culture. You know, your disposition, your expression of everything that you take in from all the things we call culture. If that's different than this group, then guess what? You're different. And so the tale of Senuhe, for example, a particular Egyptian is born and raised in Egypt. He leaves and he spends time in the Levant area, learns the customs and ways, and excels in those societies over there. And when he comes back, he wants to be buried at home back in Egypt. Guess what? When he first comes back, he's not an Egyptian. He has to be re-Egyptianized. And once he's re-Egyptianized, then he can have a burial at home. And then the opposite happens, where you have the Egyptians will have welcomed people who lived in the South and have welcomed children from the South and have raised them among the royals in Egyptian society. And then they were quote unquote Egyptianized and they would be considered an Egyptian. So it doesn't have to deal with skin color. Another one, and people don't like this one, but look at the Ptolemies, the Ptolemaic period, the Ptolemaic era. They were Egyptianized. They were represented in the artwork as full-on Egyptians. Same pigment in terms of the art. They wore the same regalia and the whole nine. Can't get around that.
Can I add something to that? Like, as a cultural significance, like you can tell in the glyphs, like they have more than one like different way of illustrating, different nations around them. It wasn't like just people in the South.
I'm sorry, say it again. Cause I hold on, let me turn. Cause boy, we gonna have
No, no, I was saying like,
pass the bucket plate for get Kadeem a good mic, man.
yeah, you can hear me now.
Right?
You can hear
Yeah,
me now.
I can hear you, but it sounds like your mic. I don't know. It sounds like your mic is like.
Yeah, my phone all the way
Yeah,
away
because
from
he
my
has
face.
the best questions, but sometimes he'll be like,
Boy,
Yeah, my phone be all
I
the way
got
from
really
my face.
struggle. But go ahead. I'm
But
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to say like it was a cultural significance that the image would explain, like the people in like other than like the quote unquote Nubians, you had they had illustrations for like quote unquote Asiatics and the another even maybe the Turkish. You know what I'm saying? Like for example, like they had more than one way of illustrating the people around them that had a difference in culture.
Yes, they did whatever it took to illustrate the distinctions between people. And so, for example, I mentioned this last night, and like I said, I probably go over this in full. Like a lot of things that I've been mentioning lately, they they deserve their own discussion. And so I know I'm grouping a lot of things together, and so I have to be kind of quick and just touch the surface. But some of these things deserve their its own topic of discussion and so on. And so I'll probably revisit it and come back to this stuff. But I mentioned this in terms of last night on the distinction. So in Egypt, they summarily looked at their situation, their orientation and position of the kingdom and everything. They looked at people from the east, people from the south, and people from the west. And so in their so-called holy text that scholars like to refer to as religious and holy texts, you have the underworld series of texts. One in particular is the Book of Gates. And in the Book of Gates, you have a scene that a lot of people are familiar with. They might not know where it comes from, but they're familiar with this scene that is called the Table of Nations. And it's actually not the Table of Nations, but that's what it's called. Just like the Book of the Dead. People call the Book of the Dead the Book of the Dead. They call it that, but it's not. But so anyway, this Book of Gates, this scene, they refer to this particular scene as the Table of Nations. So you have the Egyptians, then you have three other groups of people. So it's four groups. And one group represents the people on their left, which would be east. Another group represents people that are south. And another group that's representative of the west. And so you have the Amu representing the east, the Nehesiu representing the south, and then the Chemehu representing the west. Now, the Egyptians were very familiar with way more groups than that, but they summarily used those three, and including of themselves being four, to explain what they're explaining in this particular story. And so they were fully aware of people in their who they engaged and interacted with, from Babylonia to Akkad to everybody south and west. Okay, and they had names for all of these different people. And what would really, really eliminate a lot of these fussing matches that we see online is if people were to use the Egyptian terms, the Rani Kemet terms for these people, then it would cut down on the confusion and things. We wouldn't even have to ask the question, did the Egyptians distinguish themselves from so and so, so and so? Yes, they did, because obviously they have a totally different word for these people. And in the text where you see the word pop up, you'll see that the Egyptians had to travel beyond their southern border, beyond the first cataract. And then lo and behold, they're meeting up with these people called the Wawat, or they're meeting up with people called the Yam, the Magi or Magi. people, the Kosh, what we call Kushites people, in a region called Ta-Nehisi. And so we do this today. We have a region on our map called the Middle East. The Middle East is not a kingdom, it's not a country, or none of that. It's a region. It's a geographical region we call the Middle East. So the Egyptians did the same thing. There's a geographical region called Ta-Nehisi. But then when you get in that region, you're gonna come across different groups of people. And they had names for those people. And just knowing that alone would tell people, okay, they're not the Egyptians. Same way we could do today. Americans are not Mexicans.
Exactly.
Hands down. The moment, because you're in Texas, right? You say you're in Texas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't know where about, but I know the closer you get to that Mexican border, you're gonna see a blend of and a mixture and a blend of Americanness and Mexicanness in terms of what's going on, from the food to the behavior to how people speak and the whole nine.
Thanks.
It's going to be a blend. That's pretty much every single border of countries. And Egypt is no different. So there's going to be a blend at the southern border. It's going to be a little overlapping. And that overlapping today is called Nubia. Because if you look at what scholars are calling Nubia in terms of a place, some of it's in Egypt, southern Egypt, and some of it's in northern Sudan. So Nubia is like, crossing the border. And so that causes controversy because people are trying to identify them and put, and put our modern social constructs on them and stuff like that. That's just caused a bunch of noise. And it's just crazy because we don't do that with Mexico and Texas today. So why are we doing it with that? But anyway, so they are very distinct from each other. And, I can show countless texts where the Egyptians talk about their neighbors and how they talk about them. And I've done that. I've pulled out examples and I posted it on Facebook like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And every now and then I'll repost just to make sure people, maybe new people need to understand. And that's just it. So they're different. And see that when I say that they're different, because here's the thing, you can have two different populations of people. And when I say populations, I'm not talking about a genetic. You can have a single genetic population where the people come from the same genetic pool. So you had, let's just get you some numbers. Let's say there's 1,000 people. No, let's say 10,000 people are from the same genetic pool. So on the level of genetics, they're the same. But guess what? For some reason, they split and developed into two separate distinct cultures and people. Yet they have the same genetics, but they're two distinct people. And so we have to understand the layers. So on the level of genetics, they're the same, but on the level of culture, they're different, or the level of ethnicity, they're different. And so we can't blend the two. We can speak about one and the other, but we can't argue one for the other. Just because they're from the same genetic pool doesn't mean that they're the same people. Now, that statement would be correct if I say they're the same people genetically, but I can't say they're the same people culturally or ethnically. See, there's a difference.
Sorry. It makes me think of like you have black, people who are like genetically, quote unquote, African American, or hold on, people who are black, typically, but they're like, they have a Puerto Rican culture, or you know what I'm saying, have a Cuban culture, but you know you looking at your folks or whatever, it would be the same thing. That's how I relate to it. You know what I'm saying? You know how you have them black people, but they just speak in Spanish and swear Spanish is their native language and all that other good stuff.
Huh.
That's how I relate to it.
Yeah, we just have to do an overall. We have to have a overhaul of all this stuff. We have to, we have to kind of wipe the slate clean and start over with this stuff because the conversations have gone too far into the confusion zone to even be patched up. We just need to just wipe it away and then start over. More, properly identifying these different layers and levels. First, people got to understand that identity involves multiple layers and levels. You can't identify people. In other words, a genetic population does not equate to a speech community. A genetic population does not equate to a cultural population or an ethnic population. Those are not, you can't put an equal sign between those two. Now, they can help inform one and the other, but they're not equal. And they can be proxies to help inform of those things, but they're not equal. They're just not.
Yeah, speaking of that, I think that would be a good point for me to actually answer some. I think the name is Dasharab in the chat, because we were talking about something that is related to that, and I don't want to go too much into that because that's completely different with what we, with the Sesh. But we were talking about, I was trying to explain to the person about Luo people and the Luo community being an amalgamation of different tribes. Some actually which are Nalatic, and then some which were actually Bantu. And that's why we say that being part of what makes somebody a Luo person has got nothing to do with the genetics or lineage per se. That plays a part into it, obviously, for reasons that we know. But what we say, what makes a person a Luo person is a person who speaks the language and follows the culture. That's what makes you a Luo. So you will see that within the Luo community, you have what most people don't know is that there's it is and there are collectives of different tribes that through time were actually swallowed into the Luo community, and some of them from different Bantu tribes. Like, for example, we have the Suba community, and those actually also who came from the Buganda kingdom, and then we have some like the Abarondo, and actually just up until recently, I think 2 months ago, some particular members of that smaller tribe of the Abarondo, which is like the Bantu tribe, wanted to cut ties out of the Luo community, which is kind of impossible. But, and I'm just mentioning a few tribes, but just to answer the question that was being asked in the chat, it is an amalgamation of different particular tribes. So also, we have to be careful when we're speaking on these terms. We have to know if we're speaking about linguistically about the language itself or genetics, because all of that are very different. So just wanted to put that in there real quick.
Okay. And let me just ask you, where are you from?
I am from Kenya.
Okay, what tribe are you from?
Luo.
Okay. Do you speak the language?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I asked you that. I mean, I know the answers to that, but I asked you that because to kind of put it in perspective of when you're saying what you just said, you're coming away, you're coming from direct experience and being Luo yourself, being born and raised in Kenya and speaking the language, having friends of these different tribes that you are speaking about, and knowing the behavior, culture, and lifestyle and stuff like that. That I think that's important to point out based on what you're saying, that you're not saying this from here from the States and read that in a book somewhere.
No, and like I was also saying that most of the information are actually, some of them are there, but most people will know where to find them either way, but they're there. But I was also just stating, and that's I'm telling that also, like just from knowing what it is, because we also have to growing up in a particular culture, you do have to go through being, taught your history of your culture and see what goes on around you and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, but that was for Dasharab. I think that was the name. I don't know if
Okay,
I
I'm just
pronounced it right.
I'm scrolling back and I'm saying, he said, who did the Luo amalgamate with? Okay, that was that question. Different Nilo tribes, they're still for the most part the same. And when they arrived in that area, there are no coastal Kenyans. So I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, and in general, like when you're speaking about, especially like all these countries, and there are no physical borders, but all these countries are locked. Like we have, once you had the scramble for Africa and all those the colonizers, each party declaring a piece of land and all that stuff. When that division happens, you have to also understand something that happens. Like people, I'll take an example of Kenya because I'm from Kenya. So when you live in a country, and in Kenya we have 42 indigenous tribes over there, right? And then you have other newer tribes. But with the 42 tribes, they do not live in isolation. They haven't lived in isolation for all those hundreds of years. So when we discuss these things, we also have to be aware that people do intermix and all that stuff with the culture, with the genetics and all that stuff, where to a point where you have like Kenyan genetic or whatever you want to call it. But you can, and that will happen in every other area. So when because I think I read something about these people are almost the same as when they arrived, which is impossible just with common sense alone. So it's not like the tribes just mingling with each other in their own border. That does not happen physically. When you speak the languages, you also know that there's a lot of borrowings because of interaction through trade, through marriage, to or whatever it is that you have. And that should just be common sense, where we can't run around saying things like that. Like people are exactly the same like when they first arrived hundreds of years before.
Yeah. Just another question I saw. I think I lost it now. Oh, the Egyptians. This is Dasharab. The Egyptians are grouped with East Africans by Whitey. What y'all arguing about? I don't know what that because I just now saw the comment, so I'm not sure when that was asked, but I don't think that applies to this conversation, because I think everybody has enough knowledge to know that Egypt is in East Africa. So grouping Egyptians with East Africans, it seems like the next logical step. Egypt is Northeast Africa, basically. And they group them with them. But what does that do for us, though? Like North, South, East, West. So we got North Africa, East Africa, South Africa, West Africa, and then we got Central Africa. But now that we have that, now what? You know what I'm saying? And so, see, because I get the conversations over with quick, because I'm like, all right, and I'm no fun. People want to argue whether slavery did or did not happen in Egypt. What brand of slavery was it and stuff. I'm like, okay, Egypt, yes, Egypt has slavery. Next. And see, that's not fun when I do stuff like that, because people want to argue.
You too good, man.
They want me to say, like, they'll come to me and say, did Egypt have slavery? And they're expecting me to say no, because they got a whole list of arguments that they got prepared. But when I say, yeah, Egypt has slavery, now what? It's like, dun dun dun. It's like, oh man, I lost my steam. I don't have anything else to say now. It's like, okay, yeah, they had slavery. And most cultures had slavery, a form of slavery, I should say, to be more correct. A form of slavery. There are different types of slavery, and there are a lot of overlaps in those different types. Like I was giving an example about the cats, lion, tigers, panthers, jaguars, and stuff. There's a lot of things that those animals overlap, but then there's a lot of distinctions to the point where we can name them distinct names. A lion, and they have, biological names as well. We only know the regular names. Like we call ourselves humans, but biologically, that bicameral name that they have, Homo sapien. We're actually Homo sapiens sapiens. and so on. But I'm saying that there's enough distinctions for them to form their own group, but then enough similarities to form another node above them to unify them, to tie them together. And that is the science of taxonomy and ontology. And the way I explain ontology and taxonomy is ontology would be more so the horizontal categorization, columnar categories, and taxa would be the vertical or rows categorizations. And if you look at the biological taxonomy form, you'll see it starts with life, whatever's living, and then work its way down. The higher you go, the less specific you are. The further down you go, the more specific you are. The higher you go, the more inclusive of items. And the further down you go, the more less number of items you have in categories. And I did a whole show on that, a whole show explaining that. And so this is what people got to get used to, because this is a natural phenomenon in how we organize our world, our worldview. Every group of people do that. All groups of people do that. That's part of human psyche. Now, to the level of details and stuff like that is different among different people, but it's all the same in that sense. And you hit a phrase, same difference. That phrase, same difference, I grew up saying that. Oh, it's the same difference. And you don't really think of what that means. Same difference. Like, though that seems two opposite words, but we're using them together. Oh, it's the same difference. It's the same difference. No, we're talking about unity among multiplicity and multiplicity among unity. We could say it that way. They say different ways to skin a cat, right? So, okay, but anyway, make sure we're not missing anything, because I'm good, man. I said we're gonna end this at 11, and we went on and on. Luo branched off from the Dinka and Nuer. Let's see. Okay, talking about Chief X. Yeah, let me just mention Chief X. Chief X did a video apologizing. I saw the video, so if Chief X watching now, or he may watch this, well, it's 2 hours long now. I don't know if Chief X will watch this video unless he knew where to go. But anyway, he did a video apologizing to me for what I understand. I don't even think I saw the video and he apologized and stuff, but I didn't see him having the need to apologize. Like the stuff he was saying was on point, but as far as the apology part, because I didn't think he did anything to apologize. Now, based on the video though, he said he was about to go in on me and stuff like that. So maybe in his mind, whatever he was about to do, he was apologizing for that or something, whatever that may be. But I don't have no problem with any of that. But the point that he was making was that I guess my last video about Ahmose Nefertari, the fact that the Black depiction of her, people are taking and using it to back up a claim that the Egyptian skin color was Black and so on and so forth. That video, he appreciated what I was explaining and how I explained and stuff like that. So that was what I guess that was what he was looking for somebody to explain. And so that's that. You know what I mean? That's that. But anything in the chat that I'm missing? Okay, so here's another example of cutting to the chase. Like when somebody comes to me, they say, did Egypt have slavery? I'm like, yep, next. So here's the thing about this conversation that's mixing the levels of identity. Here's how you end it. Every single living human being who, humans that are alive today, every single living human being can ultimately trace their ancestry back to Africa. So logically, the next logical statement from that is all living human beings have African ancestors. Logically, from that, you can say all human beings are ultimately African if you're using ancestry as a criteria. So think about what I'm saying. If ancestry is a criteria on who is African, then all humans are Africans because all humans can trace their ancestry back to the continent of Africa. So who branched off from who, from who, from who, from who, from who? Eventually you go back far enough, everybody comes from a group or at least a continent. And so now it's like, all right, so where's the value in that? Where's the value in that? And so does it matter where 2 or 3 groups branch from? Or is it more informative to deal with the 3 groups themselves and how they express themselves right now? If I want to learn about, so we have 3 groups, group A, B, and C. Group A, B, and C branched off from group 0. But I want to learn about group A. So the fact that I know that they branched off from group 0, how does that inform me about the expressions that group A has right now? It's not that informative. So to spend all the time on worrying about who branched from who and not the whole other side, that's what people are missing out on. And likewise with this whole colorism argument, who is black and who's not. So, you know what the saying, you miss the forest for the trees, or however that saying goes. That's what's going on. People are arguing over the wrong things. And you know, it's just how it is. That's how, and so we got to change that. But anyway, so I've spoke enough, but anybody that came here, I haven't looked inside the panel of Zoom. Anybody else here? Nope. Anybody got any closing statements or something they want to share? But we're gonna keep doing. We're gonna keep having. You know, I'm gonna start having like open discussions where we can like pick a topic, and whatever we start off with, you know, we could kind of go in on, because sometimes it's necessary to take an element of a long conversation and really isolate it so it can have its own conversation. And so I recognize that. And so sometimes I will double back and pick something out of this whole conversation, and then we can have just a full-on conversation about that one thing. Because trying to cover multiple elements in one conversation, then the video is like 2 hours long, you know, sometimes that's not that beneficial either. All right, so did I miss anything? Hassan, first of all, peace to everybody in the chat again. Hassan says, Emicat, is the Luo tribe found in Uganda and what other countries? Plus, what's the relationship between them? Oh, she already answered. She said, yes, they are Luo people in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, Ethiopia. All right, so that's that. Yes, yes. Okay. So there you have it. I mean, you know what? Majay said, can we go in on you? Listen, if this wasn't a tail end of this video, we could start a video. As long as you do it on the panel, as long as we do it come on the panel. Yep. Go in.
Get it.
Yes, indeed. Oh no. Yep. That's all good. Anyway, so I'm gonna say, I don't have anything else. So I'm gonna say Shema Hotep. Anybody else?
yeah, I was just saying, just to wind up. So just remember, we can't be reading those glyphs, reading those pictures, like how we just going to the museum and enjoying like some pretty art and all that stuff, because those were not there for decorating and making things pretty. They were, they are all used to pass a message or portray a message. It's a form of communication, and it's like very functional in a way. So it's not, but then, obviously we can appreciate the beauty in them, but we have to understand, what they were used for, the images and the text. And it's not just to beautify things, but to, um, you know, um, like store information that needs to be, sent forward, or, for people to, to decode. Like you code a message and then decode. So we have to learn how to decode things correctly and not just be, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or doing some abracadabra stuff and, putting our own takes on it. That's all I wanted to say. So with the images, just go through the text first, and then you can take it from there, but don't just stop at the images.
All right, passing the mic. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that's all I got to say is like, if you can't read, if you're trying to explain the laws on the text and you can't read me the text word for word, I gotta take what you say with a grain of salt.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And with that, I say Shemem Motep.
All right.
Oh man, that's crazy.
So what's going on?
Hey, I went in on that joke, but whatever joke that was, what was that?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh man, I get an F on my report. I was just laughing at what dude said in the chat, man. I'm just
Oh yeah, 'cause I missed that too.
I'm trying to see my
Yeah,
way out.
buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about what? The salute champ?
No, I was in the chat. I thought I was in the chat, and dude was like, he wanted with you or something. He was just playing, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was funny. No, but see, okay, but listen. First of all, peace again to everybody in the chat. Salute champ. That question is a good question, but man, please come when we start these sessions, because we about to close out, and I can't answer that while closing out. You know what I mean? I would love to talk about that. I talked about that a few years back, and every now and then I bring it up. So what he asks is, can you explain, and I don't know if this is a male or female, so forgive me, but can you explain why spirits and energy are not or are the same thing? So that, and I had a whole conversation about that. And
Yeah, that's a great discussion.
Yeah. And then Bud John says it all matters. It depends on the study or the argument. Okay, I'm not sure what he's responding to, or must be a conversation that I'm not seeing. Okay. And then can we do a live stream about ancient Egyptian business and trade habits? Yeah, see, that'd be a good topic. You know what's interesting is that there's an ancient Egyptian map that is a actual authentic map that the ancient Egyptians drew of certain areas and trade routes. That's very interesting. I have a picture of it, so we could bring that up and stuff. And I guarantee you, on a conversation about Egyptian business and trade habits, I guarantee, I'm willing to bet, and I'm not a betting person, that Punt is going to come up. Hatshepsut is going to come up. Guaranteed. All right, y'all can call me a prophet. Watch, because when whoever has that conversation, you're gonna hear Hatshepsut, you're gonna hear Punt, and then people are gonna try to figure out, okay, where is Punt? Do we really know where Punt is and stuff? Watch, I guarantee you that's what's gonna come up. How do I know that? Because I've been in these conversations before, But no, those are good conversations though. You don't hear too much about that, about the trading and stuff. But now, I'm gonna give you all something to do to have that conversation, whether I have it or not. What you're gonna need is one, you're gonna need look for all the texts that deal with tributes that people paid to Kemet. Okay, have that, and then any expedition text. And that's why I said Hatshepsut is definitely going to come up, because she had one of the biggest expeditions and most popularly known expeditions. And she and in that you see some beautiful representations of ships and boats and things that went to Punt and other areas. So you got to get tributary text where other people traded and paid tribute, such as like the Nahisiu and different people. You have the Prince of Miam or Maim coming to pay tribute from the southern neighbors with gold and all those kind of things, leopard skins, gold and stuff. You'll see in the tomb of Khnumhotep II in the area called Beni Hassan, you'll see some Amu people caravanning, paying tribute of different trading different goods. So you're gonna have to get all that kind of stuff. Then you can have that conversation. All right. Along with the things I was saying before. To have that conversation. But that'd be a good conversation to have. What else? Let's see. What else? Can we do live stream? Okay, yeah. But yeah, on that spirit one, that whole conversation too. Now there's some common sense. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna leave y'all with this on the spirit one, because I want people to look up some things. If you listen to how people describe spirits, they're actually describing energy, and some people even use the word energy, in how they're trying to explain spirits and things. And once you get to that point, you got to understand what energy is. And energy is simply a measurement of the ability to do work. So it is a calculation or a measurement, no different than height or weight. So when you ask a person, how tall are you? And then they give you a response, that is a measurement. Well, that's exactly what energy is. How much energy something has is equivalent to asking somebody how tall or how much height a person has. And we measure it depending on what country you live in, sometimes in inches, centimeters, meters, or whatever the case is, different units, but you're measuring the height of something. That's what energy is. So now, knowing that, you'll understand that it's a property of matter. So now here's where it gets real tricky. When people try to talk about spirits, they describe energy, but then when you make those realities I just said plain, now they have to reconcile what they think they're talking about when they're talking about spirits, because when people talk about spirits, they're not talking about matter or anything material, but yet energy is a property of matter. So without matter, there's no energy. And if spirit is energy, the people who like to talk about spirits try to negate the matter part of it. But guess what? Without matter, there's no energy. Therefore, no energy, there's no spirit. So what are you talking about? And that's where you get into you cross over into the spooky and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where the level of how the conversation will have to be. People have to really understand what spirit is by understanding what energy is, and how you need matter to have energy. And if spirit is energy, then spirit is directly related to matter. You cannot have any immaterial spirit. And that changes the game. That changes the whole conversation. Changes the whole conversation. And I love to have that conversation. So we could do that. Definitely.
I like the other conversation better. The other one, as far as deferring and appealing to authority and stuff like that. That video was real helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen. Okay, so for anybody in the chat, number one, join our Facebook group, and all the links are in the description of our videos. Right? Join the Facebook group. Somehow, if anybody has a recommendation for a topic, because we like to have this topical discussion. So we go live to go in on a topic, and we like to share, explain, whatever. And so, like, you just recommended, you just spoke on that one. Somebody else brought up the spirits and energy one. Somebody else brought up, the trading habits of the Egyptians. See, those are really good suggestions. And so we need to log that so that we can come back and revisit it and go live, and we can have these discussions and plan it ahead of time so that people will know, okay, we're going to go live on this topic. So I don't mind doing that, but yeah, we need to keep that, or document that. So I'm going to remember those three though. Deferring and appealing to authority. Appealing to authority is a logical fallacy. Deferring to authority is not. That's the
That was
basic
major.
difference between those two.
That was major.
Yeah, we don't want to appeal to authority, but we have to, out of necessity, defer to authority, because each individual don't know everything that everybody else know. So we have to defer to the experts, authorities. That's it. That's the difference. So Ahati Ma'at, peace, my brother. Not sure if you saw my other comments on previous videos. I don't trust Facebook. I would like to connect through email. Okay. Let me put my email out here. Just type my email in. My email is my name, wujao@gmail.com. But in the subject, make sure you kind of give me a clue, because just like I ignore phone calls from numbers I don't recognize. I do my emails the same way. But put something in the subject so I'll know that you contacted me through the YouTube videos. But yep. Anything else though? We might as well go another 2 minutes. End this at 12. My time. Well, that's it. I mean, just a quick recap. Emicat, excellent job on the presentation. The two pieces showing the transliteration and translation method from start to finish, identifying the direction of the glyphs, identifying what direction to read, identifying the glyphs, putting those glyphs into patterns, into words, getting their definitions, and then applying grammar to come up with a sensible translation. Those are all the steps, and that was demonstrated, and that was excellent. All right, so we I guess nothing else, because I'm gonna be tempted to go in on one of those topics. Then we'll be here till 3 a.m. And you know what? I want to do that. I want to have an open discussion marathon, because we used to do it, like not just me, but me and other people. We used to go into Google Hangouts, and the Google Hangout would be open for the maximum amount of time that Google allowed. I believe it was 8 hours, and then it was cut off. But we would have 8-hour conversations. I mean, people would come in, leave, go get something to eat, and come back. But it was always like a rotation of people talking.
Basically like a Garfield.
Yeah, Garfield was definitely part of it. Garfield was part of that. I was part of it with me, Garfield, and many others, but definitely Garfield was one of those people. Unbiased, y'all. I don't know if any of y'all know Unbiased, the brother, Unbiased.
Oh yeah, y'all used to go in at night.
He'll do it. He'll go live, talk for an hour. He'll go to sleep and then wake up and then come back into the conversation. But I want to do a couple of those too. We can have just build sessions. And see, this is the thing. no, we don't have, nobody has to be adversarial. We can disagree. People can disagree, because disagree is part of the process. That should be accepted. That should be known and okay.
I, I got a question for you, Wuja.
Yeah.
So as far as like you know, Egyptian stuff, or you know, because I never heard you classify yourself as an Egyptologist or whatever, but where are you at right now, and what is your focus, or what are you honing in on?
Okay. Man,
Anything at the moment or anything like that?
that's a loaded question. You don't know it, but that's a loaded question. But I guess if
How
I
you
had,
don't how you know I don't know it? I asked the question. I'll just mess with you.
yeah,
I'm humble. I'm just having fun.
no, I'm saying like as you were asking me that, I'm thinking, and it's like a lot of things. But I like where I am is like what you see. Like I'm a person, you know, I refer to as WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Like I wear my advocacy on my shoulders. So what I say, I mean what I say what I mean. But what I'm into is what I'm advocating, what I would like to see, because what I would like to get into outside of myself is to tap into the genius of Kemet or any culture that is understudied. For me, it's Kemet right now. And so within, you know, the Kemet culture, we had to get past all the superficial noise and get down under the hood and tap into the genius of the culture to find out what is useful and what's not. Think about it. The entire discipline of anthropology and all of its sub branches, of sub branches. You got to ask yourself, why do people pursue the study of any particular thing? Like people don't just do it just to do it. I mean, some do. So I ain't gonna try to speak for everybody on the planet, but I'm saying the intent of studying something is for a reason. Like there are reasons for all this stuff.
You would want to be the master of something, I would suppose.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does it mean to master something? You know, so I guess what I'm saying is that the study of Egyptology, the study of Egypt was for a purpose when it was the discipline was created or founded in the early 1800s. There was a reason why they founded a discipline to study Egypt. So us today, studying Egypt or studying any historical or ancient culture, whatever, you learn from you learn things from it. Whether it's obviously, you know, in our day in 2021, we're not in ancient times. A lot of things have changed. The world has changed, you know, social evolution, everything has changed. So it's not much of the material culture of these older cultures and ancient cultures, but it's the ideas and concepts and processes and procedures that these ancient cultures did and went through to solve their problems that we may or may not be able to use today to solve ours. And so that is important.
Excuse me, Wuja. Sorry about that. I don't mean to be like that. But at the same time, a lot of us are not aware, you know, Egyptology doesn't just encompass the language. Like there's actually Egyptologists who specialize in mummification of monkeys. Uh, you know, mummification of this and that, or just, you know what I'm saying? It's different fields, so it's not just the language.
Yeah.
I'm just adding in because I
Well,
felt like we were on that.
well, here's the thing. In order to get to know a culture, you have to walk through the door of the language. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck outside looking through the window. Okay. Because language is the DNA of culture. Language is the recording medium of the psychology of the people. And if you want to get to know the people and their culture, you have to learn the language. So archaeologists and people who study the material culture, the material items of a culture, they're handicapped. And that's no secret, because when you become an archaeologist, you know, they full well know that. That's why archaeologists and a lot of these other people,
Defer.
they will cross, right, exactly. They defer to each other and cross pollinate, and you have
Exactly.
this multidisciplinary thing going on, which
And I
really,
don't think there's nothing wrong. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that either, because you should, like, you have your friend, like you could talk to Asar about something, or you could talk to Ankh about something, right? Ain't that the way it goes?
no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that is the way to go. Like the multidisciplinary approach is the approach.
Okay.
So yes, but my little lane, or my niche in this, is to master the language so that I can have an intimate relationship with the people themselves. And the whole thing is let them speak for themselves. I don't want to make up things and put it on them. I want them to tell me who they were. I want them to tell me how did they unify and stay unified for
So,
3,000 years. I want them to tell me their genius. I don't want to
so
make up.
specifically,
Say it again.
specifically the language.
Yeah, I'm more into the language aspect of reaching into the culture. Some people do it through the material items, such as burials, sites, pottery, and things. These tangible artifacts, they can refer to
Administration.
as material
Okay.
culture. I deal with it through the language, through the psychology, that way.
Okay.
And so, based on my experience thus far, you know, I got a pretty good relationship with the Remish folks. I got a pretty good relationship with them. Like, I just give a quick surface example. I know that the Remish viewed the world very differently than we do. The physical, geographical layout of the world differently than we do. If you were to take, and I went over this before, a lot of people probably already know this. If you take the continent of Africa and laid it on the floor in front of you, the Egyptians would stand on it, face South Africa, and then lay down with their head at the South Africa, their feet in North Africa, their left arm and hand in East Africa, and their right hand in West Africa. That's their orientation.
Right.
And that means a lot. That may seem like a little thing and not a big deal, but that's a very big deal, because once you figure out the orientation of people, you can learn you can connect some other things. Like a lot of Semitic cultures, Semitic speaking cultures, they orientate facing with their forward facing towards the Orient, the East, and their left side is the North. And you can find this out by looking up words for the left hand or the left side, and what their word is for the cardinal point in question. So the North is usually the left hand. In Egypt, Iyabet is east, and it's also Iyabet is the left hand. Amenet is the west, and Amenet is also the right hand, on the right hand side. And they follow the path of the sun. So everything identifies with the sun, and that's why even in the table, man, let me show this real quick. See, y'all about to get me kind of wound up a little bit here and whatnot. I'm gonna show something here, and I showed this before. I think I even mentioned this real recent, but I'll just do it again, because I always like to show as I'm speaking. I like to show things. Let me just pull this up. All right, here we go. So everybody's pretty much seen these images before, but just real quick again, this scene is okay. Let me just explain this picture. This image here of these four figures comes from the tomb of Ramses III. this image, and it's a reproduction, so that's not a primary. It's somebody drew what's in the tomb. It only took one figure from each set. There's actually 4 figures in each set, but that's just representative of Ramses III tomb. Okay. This picture is a reproduction of this tomb, Seti the First. Okay, just let people know what you're looking at. Okay, now this particular scene is a vignette from the text called the Book of Gates. And this is they call the Book of Gates, the 4th division, the 5th hour, because it's divided by 12 hours for 12 gates. So this is what people call the Table of Nations. So why I'm showing this is to support what I was saying about their orientation. The Egyptians went in a clockwise movement, but faced south in terms of their orientation. And so you'll notice that things are labeled in that direction, whether you realize it or not. If you're reading text and everything follows that, even the tombs are laid out in this kind of flow. Which is why one of the reasons why you have retrograde inscriptions here. Normally, or all the time, you would read into the glyphs. If the glyphs are facing to the right, you're going to read into them. But because they're in columns, people will assume that you also read the columns in the same direction, but that's not the case. Here, you read into the glyphs, yes, but you're reading retrograde, which you're going to read against the grain. They call it columnar retrograde. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. But when you look at the Egyptians, these 4 figures here are the Egyptians themselves. So they start with themselves, and then they go in a clockwise fashion, starting with their left hand side, Iabet. And to their left are the Amu, the Asiatics. What's in front of them is the south, which is the Nehisiu. And then they end on the left, which are the Chemehu, Libyans. Okay, so today people like to say the Egyptians, the Asiatics, the Nubians, and the Libyans for these 4 groups. But that follows their orientation. So I'm just showing you the connection between what we're seeing here with what I said earlier about their orientation. And I could, to confirm it, like I said, the right hand is the Amenet, the left hand is Iabet, the south is Resi, which is the same word for the head, which is why I say they lay down. And the Mehu is the north, and it's also the word for feet, that which is below, which is your feet. And then the interior, Khenu or Kemet, is in the interior. That's where your heart is if you were laying down. Just that simple. And Khenu, the interior, and the word Ib have the same semantic overlap. Something that is the essence of something. So Ib Kemet would be the heart of Kemet, and that is actually Khenu, the interior. All right. So hope everybody follow that. It's just some quick. But anyway, I hope I answered your question. Like like I said, my focus is to streamline an intimate relationship with the culture by way of its language, and that is the only way that can happen. You can stay on the outside, looking in the windows and looking through the door and the blinds by doing other things, but you're not going to get in the house unless you deal with the language.
Yeah, that was, I got you.
And that's it. So, so that, that's why I focus on that. I'm not satisfied with looking, window shopping. I'm trying to try on the clothes. Definitely. But what you said before, this is not a pursuit to become Egyptian. Nobody's an ancient Egyptian. Ancient Egyptians, because what makes an ancient Egyptian is not simply because you're in the area or whatever the case is. There's a whole lot that comes with that. And it goes back to what I was saying before. It's a whole list of cultural elements that make up part and parcel of what the culture is. That makes you that. You know. So there you have it. But all right, so I'm gonna say Shem Hotep. I'm making sure I didn't miss any questions or anything. Scrolling up real quick. That's correct. We've been in here three in the morning.
So did your gas go up?
Oh, gas, yeah, it went up because yesterday it was like at $3.30. Today it was at I saw 380 in the 380s. So it definitely went up. Gas went up. How's it in Texas?
Everything the same. Everything, nothing changed right now.
Yeah, because Texas is an oil state. Oil and gas, right? I mean, it's
Yes, sir.
and well, to my knowledge though, the company that got hit with the hack and all that was a major gas pipeline company or whatever, but I think it's predominantly on the East Coast though, if you know, if I'm correct on that. I don't know for sure.
I don't know. You the one that put out the news, so, so I was deferring. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't look beyond that sticker shock and what I was experiencing. I was like, man, you know, the lines, I was like, man, people are seriously like, you know, here in Georgia, in some gas stations, they limit you to only $25 worth of gas. So if your car takes 40 to fill it up, you gotta get 25 from one gas station, then find another one to get some more, you know. And I understand that because they want to spread it out. Because they ran, you know, some of these gas stations ran low because people just, man, bombarded the gas station. People, I mean, car lines wrapped around the gas station, around the block. Yeah, so.
Panic sells. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they got the systems back together though. That's too long ago. So a lot of people just rush to get gas. Yeah, they ain't had to rush to get it.
Let's see. All right, that's it. Send me an email. Looking for. All right, appreciate that. All right, so I'm gonna say Shem Hotep. Listen, if you haven't subscribed, I don't know how you stumbled across us now, but if you are not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell and change the setting to all notifications. That way, whenever we pop up live, you'll at least be notified. And then obviously our videos will be in the archive, and we have a good archive now. So come back on your own time and just check out some videos. We try to label the videos with a descriptive title to what, you know, the conversations are about. So just check everything out. And you can, you know, the links are in our description where you can find us on Facebook, the website if you want to learn the lessons. And, you know, I'm not a salesman. And so I always forget to just at least let people be aware that we have classes. We have a beginner's level class, and I'm going to soon start publicly with a grammar's level or a higher level with the grammar of the language. And I anticipate doing that once I'm finished the grammar textbook. But we have classes, beginner's classes. I've been teaching the language for about 10 years now. Start off face-to-face and, you know, in face-to-face setting, and then started doing it combination of face-to-face and online. Then I just moved to strictly being online, you know. So I've been doing this for 10 years. And so yeah, so we have these classes. A lot of people that you see on the panel, people who are doing this kind of work, they've either rubbed elbows with me, learning from someone else, and then we collab together, or they've taken courses with me from the start. and I welcome them all. You know, my whole thing now is to create a virtual community of people who are into the language, a virtual community of scribes. So we have Seshu Ma'ani Medew Netcher, which means loyal scribes of divine words. And this is a virtual community that we want to see grow with, discipline, people who are, interested and stay the course. And trust me, there's benefits. Like, we go live and we do this kind of thing, but I have discussions all the time in private Zoom sessions about a whole number of other things dealing with Kemet. Time and place for different things, talking, live. I know that the noise will come.
Yeah.
And,
And I definitely want to get it in, but you know what I'm saying, I'll be on the plantation 12 hours a day. So I'm just trying to get it right so where I can really focus on it. Cause I'll be dibbling and dabbling. And one of the good things about COVID was, I'm saying, I got closer to scholars. And so I've been learning a little bit like that way. But I do plan to get with you and stuff like that. It's just a matter of time. It's gonna happen.
well, here's a good thing too, and I need to start putting it out here more. Is that the way that I've designed the beginner's level study course is self-paced, so you can learn at your own pace, at your own convenience. The benefit, another benefit is that weekly I have these live sessions where wherever you are in the study course, you can pop in on live sessions to ask questions that's related to wherever you are in the book or whatever case, the textbook or whatever case it is. If you're on chapter 1, if you're on chapter 2, none of that matters. You can get your questions answered. We build off of different things about the culture, about the language. We go in, whatever it takes. And so I do that on a weekly basis, but you can actually study and learn on your own. The way that the textbook is and the online quizzes, you can actually go at your own pace. So I try to accommodate for that, because I don't want to hear people who have the interest but then don't have the time and stuff like that. I don't like that. So I want to accommodate for that. So keep that in mind also.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so I'm definitely out of here. And the brother is correct. Never believe Wujao when he says he's ending. Yeah, I have that. What they call it? I think MK, you told me. People in Kenya when they got those long goodbyes.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm the master of that. But I'm gonna say Shemim Hotep, and I'll see you all next time, Friday.
Okay.